What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be wondering what Golf 360 is, and I came up with it and the name after spending over 30 years and a lifetime in golf, in and around the game, in all facets and levels, and I have come in contact with, become friends with, learn from, pick the brains of, etc., a bunch of different people within the industry, outside of the industry, all who have exceptional knowledge, information, experiences, etc., to pass along to make me better in the game when I was playing it, or outside the game in the business that I've been involved in, on the teaching side, etc. So because there were so many different people that I had access to and was fortunate enough to have access to, I thought, if this is an all-encompassing podcast, why not, and it's golf-related, why not call it Golf 360, so hence the name. The one thing that I've found out about all these people that are going to be guests on the show is they had two common denominators. One, they were very highly accomplished and exceptional at what they did in their field. The second was they were more than willing to share their knowledge, their experiences, their pearls of wisdom with me and many others who were more than willing to learn and improve themselves, be it in their games, their businesses, their life, or what have you. So I hope that you're going to enjoy listening to the show, to each and every one of the guests that I have on the show, and that you're able to utilize information that they give, whether it's a story or an experience or what have you, so that you can continue to improve at your game and at life. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Lowcountry. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353. Okay, I am very excited to have as my first guest on the show a titan in the industry. He's a director of golf at Secession Golf Club in Beaufort, South Carolina, and his name is Mike Harmon. Now, Mike's been in and around this game for almost 50 years, and he has seen and done it all, and we talk about all of that in today's show. We start with how he began in the game as a kid, and as he worked his way up into becoming a member of the PGA Tour in the early 80s and rubbing shoulders with some of the biggest and best names to have ever played the game. And then we follow his career as he segues from the PGA Tour into the club side of the business, where he goes from walking the fairways and playing at the most elite level all the way back to the beginning, where he is washing golf carts, washing golf clubs, and folding sweaters. From there, we get into his progress in the industry side of the business, where he became the director of golf at Secession Golf Club, and he was very instrumental in the development and the building of that club from the ground up from day one. We also talk about Secession Golf Club itself, the name, the unique experience that members and guests have when they go there, the challenges that the club had in the early days, and of course the successes that it has today, plus a whole lot more. So I caught up with Mike during one of the busiest times of year, but in typical Mike fashion, he is always willing to help somebody out, and he made time for us to do this interview. So he gives a ton of wisdom. He tells some amazing, great stories, and I hope you find this interview as informative and enjoyable as I did while talking to him. Okay, I'm here with Mike Harmon, Director of Golf, your official title?
Yep.
Okay, director of golf, Secession Golf Club. I don't know how you did it this time of year in the Low Country, and especially at Secession. You fit me in for a second time. Extremely grateful and humbled that you would think of me enough to allow that to happen. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Pete. I appreciate it.
So as I tell people, and that people ask who you're going to interview, and I tell them Mike Harmon, some of them who are not in the industry, the first question they say is, "Oh, you're going to interview Butch's brother? So is there any relationship there outside of sharing a last name?"
Well, I think there is. Distant. Me and the boys have always chuckled about it. They call me Cuz. Claude, the old man and just a legend, was from Savannah, and I had family all over Savannah. I was from Atlanta, so there's probably some distant connection, but no, not one of the boys. That's the bigger thing. When I was playing the tour, I'd be in the Northeast, and I was a rookie in my first swing up there, and I would get asked 15 to 20 times a day how Claude was doing. Well, the first two or three, I'd say, no, that's Claude Harmon at Winged Foot, and I'm Mike Harmon from Atlanta. I'm not one of the boys or anything like that. After about 5 or 6 of those, somebody asked me how Claude's doing. I just said, "Man, he's doing great."
We just had dinner last night.
I'm not going into it. That was too much air.
Well, let me ask you this question, because this one also came up quite a bit. So your nickname is the Old Pro.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Good question. I started here in 86, 87. And for some reason, I was the Old Pro then. I don't know. I was 32, 33 years old, so I was hardly old. Mm-hmm. I think it was OL apostrophe at that point. Now it's just OLD.
Did it maybe start out as ye Old Pro?
No, I don't think it was. It could have been. I probably had somebody say that, but now my old sign out there is just OLD. And I don't mind that at all.
Just simple and basic.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Pro and O-Pro, I was playing at St. Andrews last summer, and walking down the fairway before I even got to Granny Clark's Wine, somebody yells from the right side of the fairway, "Pro, Pro." Walk over, say hello to somebody. Walked another 50, 100 yards down, and I hear, "Old Pro, Old Pro." I look over, another guy from Chicago or something like that. So, yeah, that's been the moniker for a long time. I always get comments about the parking spot with the sign on it. That's always gone over well.
So let's go back somewhat to the beginning and how you got started in golf.
Well, I was a good baseball player. I probably had a chance to play at a couple of schools in college, and at 15 had to make that decision. I've always given my dad credit for that decision. He said, "Mike, you can play, if you're lucky, you can play baseball maybe till you're 30 competitively, but you can play competitive golf the rest of your life." And as an athlete, that was a big deal. So I turned over and started playing golf. Was a public links player. My dad didn't play. My grandfather had played, but I took to it fairly quickly as an athlete. Didn't know squat about the game. Didn't know anything about rules or etiquettes or traditions or anything else. I was just kind of cutting my teeth in the early years, even through junior college, and won the state public links in '76, and that changed things right there in Georgia. And Eastlake came along not long after and gave me a junior membership with the aid of my old coach, Jim Gunter, a teacher in Atlanta and a member of Eastlake. And so I had membership there for a few years until I turned pro. But did continue. I wasn't really good in college. I enjoyed college probably more than I should have. I played okay in college, but it wasn't until after I got out of school that playing professionally that I really began to blossom as a player, and then we took off from there.
Where did you go to college?
Middle Tennessee. Had a full ride, which was a big deal for me and my family. And the old coach there, E.K. Patty, was a delightful man, well in the end of his career, but he treated me so well, and I owe and allowed me. He always told me he'd give me a summer scholarship to graduate, And I did. Took a little more than a summer, but I did graduate. Loved my final year there. I was just actually a student. I didn't have to play. I didn't have to practice. Was a dean's list. Was a history international relations guy, and loved just being a student for a year. But then I can remember going to the mini tours not long after that and thinking how much I loved not having homework.
You had the best of both worlds.
I did. So the amateur career was nothing, outstanding. And frankly, the professional career wasn't outstanding, but I did eventually proceed to the highest level and was always thankful for that.
What was your fascination with the game? Or did it not evolve until later on?
I think I was just a competitor. I was an athlete, and I had to piece my way around that. Jim Gunter, the guy that I mentioned earlier, my owned a driving range near my house in Atlanta, and he and I hooked up, and I began to learn kind of the fundamentals of the game from him. He was a classic swinger of the club. But I was still I didn't have any money to speak of, so I wasn't playing in the Porter Cups and the North-South. So I didn't do that. Played in a few events, but so I was fairly green by the time I got to college, and I never won in college. But I think I was laying a seed at some point, and what flipped it was playing professionally. I had the time to practice. I had the commitment. I had the talent. Don't know that I had necessarily the attitude, the full belief in yourself that I see great players have, and I had a work ethic and just worked my butt off, and it ultimately paid off.
Were there any lessons that Mr. Gunter or your coach at Middle Tennessee State, and anything that those guys taught you, not so much about the swing, but let's say about the game that helped you in life, or that you might still use to this day?
Yeah, both were. Mr. Patty was well up in his years, so he and I connected more on life terms than golf terms. Jim was just a good instructional guy, a good player himself, but never really played at the highest levels. And so what I got from them was the work. I'll never forget, at Middle Tennessee, there was a huge field right outside the athletic dorm. And I really cut my teeth in that practice field. Shag bag, hitting my own balls, chipping my own balls to the bag, something that's a lost art today. When you've got 150 balls out there, you just chip to them. Well, you become very creative, or you're bored to tears. So I began to create, taking full swings and hitting at 20 feet, that type of thing. And I think it created the short game that I had, which has always been the hallmark of my game. Chipping and driving the ball were certainly my strong suits. But I think that was born out of that shag field. But my leadership, and that's probably where I came up a tad short, was I needed someone to mentor me in, you should be playing in the Porter Cup, or you should be playing in the North-South, or here's what you do when you do get your card. I was kind of freelancing that because none of the people around me had done that either. They were wonderful, supportive, and we worked it out. We figured it out. And easily the most important day of my professionals career is when I went through the finals of a tour school. That if you never play again, you will always be a former PGA Tour player.
Yes,
and it never signaled it was a signal to anyone that knew me that I played there, that I had gotten there. And it almost, and I see this a lot in guys that don't quite make it. There's like this sword in their hand that they can't get out. They compete and they compete and they compete. They're always trying to prove something. And after I went through that tour school, I didn't have anything else to prove again as far as a player was concerned. And I went on to play as a club pro and competed well for 20 more years. But that day was hugely significant for me in Pinehurst, and I'll never forget that one.
What was there a moment, or what was it that made you decide that yes, you want to pursue playing as a profession outside of graduating and going into the business world?
Good question. I can remember some of my teammates at Middle Tennessee talking about players, and of course I was no All-American, so they had every right to question whether or not I could make it or not. But I remember being in an argument with them about, or one or two of them, about how you couldn't make it or I couldn't make it. And I just remember the statement that, look, those guys put on their pants just like I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just going to work harder. That's all. Hard to be a student athlete and work as hard as you need to work to play at the highest level. Now, all Americans are extremely gifted and very good, and they think right. And that's that 20% that are destined to be on the tour and destined to be the Curtis Stranges and the Jordan Spieths of the world.
Mm-hmm.
They're just that good. The other 75, 80% just need a break. They're good, but they need a confidence boost. And I didn't have that per se. This was long before Bob Rotella and the mental game and all that. You just worked your butt off. That's all. And my coach taught that, and that's what we did. And it paved the way for me to get to a point, but it wasn't enough to propel me to stay out there 20 years. But as it turned out, that was all that I really needed,
Mm-hmm.
because it did take that sword out of my hand of having to compete all the time. And these guys, I see these all the young guys, the Kisners, the Kuchers of the world have been through here, and I've chatted with them, and they will try to beat you out the door. All right, they'll pound on you for 36 holes during the day, and they want to play cards all night. They want to pound you at night. I was never that way in this game. I enjoyed the camaraderie of the game. I enjoyed talking with people, and that's really not the formula for making it out there. There are some that are that way, but it has to be very focused, and that was the mental aspects that I think I came up a little short in, that pretty much kept me from maybe making a living out there. Who knows? But as I said, in my world, and what eventually evolved, and that being this place, that was plenty good enough for me.
So you had told me the story before about Q School in Pinehurst, and can you kind of tell the people who are listening how Q School differed back in those days? I think there were two, weren't there?
There were two, exactly. Spring and fall. This was 1980, and I had this was the spring of 1980. I had missed in the fall of 1979 in the finals, my first school in the finals at Waterwood in Texas. Butt kicking golf course. Holy cow. I think 10 over won the card there. I think 10 over won the school 4 days. I think 17 or 18 over got the tour card.
Jeez.
That for those 4 days.
What was the course?
Waterwood National.
Okay.
Kind of east and maybe north of Houston. So I got to Pinehurst number 6, which was a total butt kicker as well. A bit distracted. I played my practice rounds in Pinehurst, flew to Atlanta for the second stage of U.S. Open qualifying, which was at Baltusrol in 81. Nicklaus won. Qualified at Atlanta Athletic Club, 36 holes on Monday. Flew Monday night to Pinehurst to start the tour school on Tuesday, the next day. Got my card on Friday, but I'll never forget, and Linda, my wife, she was a classic on this one. I birdied the first 2 holes of the tournament, and I've just qualified for the Open. I'm on a freaking cloud. I played the next 7 holes 9 over to shoot 77, and to turn 7 over. And she came up to me. She's a sweetheart. She never did this. She came up to me. She said, "If you don't get your head out of the clouds, I'm going to pound you with that 7-iron." She said, she threatened to hit me with the 7-iron, and I made 9 pars. after that. So it did kind of shake me loose because I had never qualified. I'd qualified for U.S. Public Links, which at that time you either played in U.S. Amateur or U.S. Public Links. They were segregated based on whether you were in a club or not in a club. Not many people know that. Of course, the public links went away. So very, very interesting. So I'm now playing in the first round of a final tour school, but my mind is wholly on what's going to happen next week. And she jolted me back into shape pretty quickly, and went on to make it on the cut, right on the number, 10 over, made it. Even par won that one. So it was a very hard golf course, and I tell the story about the final hole. I was off the mark by a few because I started on the 10th hole. They went 1 and 10. So it must have been a fairly compact crowd. I remember Payne being there, Payne Stewart, and several others that went through that school. I think Hoke was through there. I was on 10, so I finished on the 9th. Hard par 4 at number 6, which it was in its infancy. It was hard. It's kind of like TPC when it first opened. It was very edgy, and this one was edgy. So I hit driver 5-iron. I remember it well, to about 20 feet, dead hole high, right of the hole.
Isn't that amazing how golfers can remember specific things from decades ago?
Well, your whole career's hanging right here. Now, I can't really tell you much more about that tournament at all, but I remember this one and this is not in the age of phones and where you get instant updates on where you are. You have no idea. There's just a feel about how you're doing. And I'm even for the day on a really hard golf course, final round of a tour school. There's a lot of puking on that day. That usually makes up ground. So I was zipping in there 20 feet, and I feel like I have to have it, and I hit a really good putt. It just hit a little too firm and hit it about 3 feet by on the high side. So now I got this left to right breaker 3 feet, a little uphill, but it's not my favorite putt. And there's one of the guys I'm playing with who's not going to make it. It's balls right there. I went over to him. I said, "Bud, look, I don't mean to be rude or anything, but I'm finishing this. I'm not going to wait around for the rest of the group because this could mean something." Nobody else was in it, and stood right on his line to make that putt. Made it on the number.
Did you buy him anything after?
Don't remember who it was, but God bless him wherever he is.
So how long did you play the tour?
Just a couple of years, 80, 81, a piece of 82, and you exited on your annual. So I was off by the middle of the year. No real threats there. I made a couple of cuts early on. I remember making a cut in Memphis and Milwaukee, and a couple of early kind of mid-season. I started in the middle of the season after that Open, and. But our biggest break came Barry Harwell and I, both who was from Atlanta as well. I think he went through the same school at Pinehurst, hooked up for the Disney World Team Championship, and we shot 33 under for 4 days.
Better ball.
Lost to the Edwards brothers, David and Mike.
Joel?
Mike. I think it was Mike. And they shot 36 under for 4 days. We finished second, and we made a nice check, but that win would have brought a 3-4 year exemption with it. So that was as close as I got, and that's a big deal. Wins are what change people. Wins,
confidence factor goes.
It's confidence. That's exactly right. That's all it is, and it's not talent. Week to week out here, there's 5,000 guys with the same amount of talent. There's just confidence. Now, there's that 20% that I mentioned earlier that are better than everybody else. That's true in any sport.
Right.
You see the Jordan Spieths and the Justin Thomases. They were winning when they were 5 and 10 and 15 years old.
Prodigies.
They still win,
prodigies.
and they're destined to be there unless they get hurt. That's about it. That's the only thing that keeps them out. Curtis was probably the best player I saw in college. Andy Bean was playing when I was playing. Bean shot nothing. He was like Miller. He'd shoot 60 and 61 and 62s. But there were a host. Jay Haas was out then, who I've seen many times since. He comes through the club here with some regularity and just an absolute gentleman. But those were Koch and Hancock down in Florida. Florida had a great team at that point. So these, for me, it was just a function of trying to fit in, and a win would have done that. And of course, when you win on the tour, you're now not playing with the same guys that you played with in college. As a C pairing, you had A, B, and C pairing. Well, now you're paired with Nicklaus. You're paired with Watson. Every week you're in the A pairing. Well,
you start to think different.
You think. That's exactly right, Peter. That's exactly right. You go to dinner with them. And you watch how they interact with people around the dinner table, or in questions, or when just in general conversation. You sense that confidence. You really do, and that's mentorship. That's what mentoring is all about to some degree.
Right.
And most of those guys have brought somebody along with them. You look at the great players. They almost come in pairs. You had Nicklaus and Weiskopf. You had Kite and Crenshaw. You see that Phil Mickelson had. They were at ASU he was there with his roommate was Johansson, Per Ulrich Johansson.
Yeah.
Well, they actually, I read a story once. They actually talked about in their room at night how cool it would be if they were paired against each other in the singles on the final day of a Ryder Cup.
And then it happened.
I think it happened at Brookline or or Oak Hill or somewhere. I mean, that's stunning. I've got Led Zeppelin flying, drinking beers in my room. Oh God! So you brought them along. Well, Haas and Strange. Haas had one. He's had one of the finest careers of any professional ever. Longevity, beautiful swing. Well, he watched Curtis play. I guarantee you, he became a better player because he was hanging around Curtis, who was the ace at that point. So a win like that changes you, and I never got that. That team championship would have been it. I think that would have been the break for me, and then I would have at least been unleashed to be as good as I could be.
Right.
That's the key. We didn't sign for any money back then. You got clubs. I was a Wilson guy. Wilson was a cool staff back then. They had a lot of good players, and they made those beautiful forged heads, and they'd grind them as you wanted.
Yeah,
always
Robert Mandrella was a famous designer.
Exactly right, out of Chicago.
Yep.
Exactly. And so we got some equipment, but we didn't get any money per se. You get your card now. You can certainly cover your expenses for the year, if not a great deal more, depending on who you are and how good you are coming out. But those were big breaks. But my tour career was relatively short, and I often call it euchre-esque. Being euchre have similar. We pretty much sucked, but we got there, and I'm always grateful for that. And then, as I said, as I got. I lost I went back to the tour school, the first exempt tour in 1982 at TPC. Made it through I made it through the qualifiers, the first stage, and I don't remember if there was two at that point. There could have been two stages to get to the finals, but that was the first school for 50 cards, the exempt tour. I remember Donnie Hammond shot nothing at TPC. I think he shot 20-something under or something.
Yeah, he had a habit of that.
He was a really good player. I had bumped into him on the mini tours once I turned pro down at Space Coast Tour. And I went there, and TPC was just on a couple weeks ago, and every time I see the 18th hole, I think of it was the final hole of my fifth round. We were playing woodheads back then. Caught it a little on the toe. Turned it over, this little duck hook that I'm trying to hit anyway, just caught a little on the toe, and this thing hits in the middle of the fairway, but it's got all sorts of spin on it, and rolls and rolls and rolls. And I swear I thought it was going to stop on the boards. That's how slow it was going. I thought it was going to stop on the board, and it just limped over into the lake. Rifled something up into the crap right of the green, made triple, put me 3 off the number needed for the tour, for the card for the first exempt tour. Shot even the last day. I do remember that, and still finished 3 off. So never had a chance to get back into it again. And actually, I did go back to that same school the following year. In '84, I had come to Hilton Head then and was working and made it back. Won the region in the tour school, and so I was obviously still playing well.
Right.
But lost in the finals and then never tried it again after that.
What was the tour like back then?
Well,
on kind of a weekly basis, or as much as you played. Did you play weekly, or did you play 3 weeks in a row, take a week off? Or?
Well, no. I remember I was under Monday qualifyings, so I was under the old system, which was falling apart. You had 6, 8, 10 spots for 150 guys trying to qualify for on Monday.
So even though you got through the Q school, you were not that did not get you into the
no. Only 80 and 83. Did it start as an exempt. That school in '82 had you in an exempt status. And I think that was a huge stepping stone for young guys coming out because it put them pretty much on par with everybody else that was exempt. They could play where they wanted to play, stay home. If they didn't like the course, they stayed home. But in my day, you had to go play on Monday to get in the tournament for Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So you had almost a couple of cuts. You had to get in on Monday. You had to make the cut on Thursday. If you made the cut, you were in the following week. So players would parlay that into what was then the top 60.
So that was kind of their reshuffle system, built-in reshuffle.
More or less, but a little more free enterprise because you had to play. You didn't get you can play on a reshuffle, play 1 or 2 good weeks, and then reshuffle into a better position.
Right. Now,
not the case back then. You had to just keep playing. If you missed a cut, as long as you made cuts, you kept rolling. But the tour itself was still at that point, a big show. You got well taken care of. You didn't have cars.
Mm-hmm.
But they took you everywhere. There were still 60, 70,000 people there. Heck, by the time I got there, I was I'd never played in front of 100 people before, and I was at Baltusrol playing in front of 60, 70,000 people.
Different experience, isn't it?
Oof. Yeah, not comfortable at all. That's not, but you do, once you're out there, you do grow accustomed to that. Now, Ryder Cup, stuff like that's wholly different.
Right.
That's a pressure beyond normal pressure. And certainly the pressure with the lead is a lot different than just posting up your, making a cut or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to adapt to it fairly quickly. That wasn't a big deal. For me, really, it was about the putter and somewhat of a lack of confidence rather than an overly positive, which that's just your human makeup to some degree.
Right.
But the tour itself was it was a cool time. I think now it's probably a little more segregated with quote teams of people following these guys around. They have their own camps, if you will. That wasn't the case back then.
Yeah, there weren't even teachers out there back then. That really didn't start till the Ledbetter era.
Very seldom.
Mid to late 80s.
Very seldom. I mean, Mr. Nicholas, Mr. Palmer would all have these entourages around them. They
Right.
were certainly the kings. But no, I don't. I don't know that I ever remember seeing teachers per se out there then. So
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly changed now. It's far more myopic, I would say, for the player, and probably needs to be. It's gotten more and more difficult. There's 100 guys that can shoot 61 on any given day.
It's amazing
out there now, and I think that's a byproduct of the web tour. They have learned to go very deep in order to progress out of that tour onto the big tour. Well, I don't think you lose that dynamic when you're when you have a good round going. They've learned to go low. So just because they're on the tour, it doesn't matter. It could be at Palm Springs, could be in Guatemala playing,
right.
in whatever. That was the one thing I always had. I had the capacity to make birdies until I just ran out of holes. I had course records all over the place. I knew how to go deep. And once I got it going, that's that confidence thing. Once I did get it going, I won, or I darn near win. And that you see virtually in every one of these guys now. They shoot nothing week in and week out. That web tour has to be 20 on average 25 to 28 under to win every week.
And I can remember when Todd Behringer won and set the record in Dayton. I think he was 23 or 4.
Yeah.
And now, like you said, the guys are doing that almost weekly.
Anderson, Mark Anderson, the young kid here, who I've known and tried to help. Didn't have to help him much. He was tremendously talented. He shot 28 under to win BMW a couple of years back up in Greenville. So these guys, they were the ones, the Watsons, the Nicklases, they were the ones who went deep. They were the ones who had the show. Lee Trevino was out when I was playing. There wasn't a guy when I was playing in the early 80s that wouldn't say he was the finest ball striker out there. And it was a show. If he was around, it was a show. Not like Tiger or Phil now. That's insane what's going on now. But nonetheless, it was still a big show. So the tour was still very electric. You were well taken care of at that time too. Not nearly the money by any means. And but a lot of my guys played very well for a good long time and tapped into that pension fund, which is monstrous. Huge. I forget. I think it was John Adams out of Texas. He stayed out there 20 years. You know how good you have to be to stay out there 20 years? I mean, I don't know if he ever won, but my guy could play. And he was comfortable playing out there. And you know this, Pete. It's not a function of talent. It's a function of how comfortable you are.
Very much so.
In that world, in that universe, to get the most out of your talent. Well, I was never really comfortable. That's all. That doesn't make me good or bad. Eventually you sort of learn to work through that if you have the time. And the biggest problem nowadays with these guys is they don't have a lot of time. They have a year. I mean, they got to produce almost immediately. But I think that the comfortability of it, the ability to fight through for me it was mostly the putter. If I putted well, I had the talent, but just not enough to push me through it. And ultimately it ended.
People used to ask me the difference at that level playing, and like you said, it's at comfortable, because when it comes down to very simple decision that should be, and if you're second guessing just a bit and you're off just that much, that's a difference in maybe making a cut or going home or top 10ing or winning or what have you. I would always tell people, well, it's kind of the equivalent of driving a car down your street in your neighborhood at 20 and you hit a stick or twig, and in a Formula One race car and you hit a stick or twig. It could be catastrophic, right? Because you're at such a high level and you're so well trained and so forth.
There's to me there I think the best players just always had a certain focus about them. I saw it in young Anderson here. There was a comfortability about themselves in that world, and they're talented, but there's something extra special there. And for you and I, we had just as much talent, maybe not the 80, not in the 20%, but we certainly had the talent to fit into the 80%. And it just takes something. It does. Kenny Knox was a guy I traveled with a good bit, a name that a lot of people know if you watch golf in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
Really good driver of the ball, Kenny was. And we traveled a good bit. He lost his card not long after. I think we may have gone through the same school. He may have gotten out a bit earlier. He lost his card. And a couple of years later, he ended up four-spotting in a qualifier, I think it was on the west coast of Florida somewhere, whatever tournament it was. Came out of the 4 spot and won. Now, and there haven't been many people that have done that.
That's pretty impressive.
That son of a gun didn't miss a cut for like 3 years. So what happened is all of a sudden the confidence level went up. He's in the A pairings. He's playing with the Nicholas. He got to know Mr. Nicholas apparently pretty well, and Jack kind of took him in. Well, what's that worth? Just that goes from how you handle maitre d's and waiters at night to how you handle the locker room guys during the day. Just watching him. What did he do? Well,
that learning curve is cut way down.
And that's the difference between top 50 and 1,000.
Yeah, people don't understand that. Mm-hmm. There is such a small difference at that level.
It's just a confidence thing. And you know it. You've had great rounds. Once it gets going, that confidence there. Those great players think that way all the time. Mm-hmm. Just like great putters always think.
They expect to make it.
They expect to make it. That's it. And that's the difference between a good player like you and I and the guys that went on to
What was your favorite part? Excuse me, of playing the tour back then? Or was there a favorite part?
I think for me it was probably wholly uncomfortable. I enjoyed, I sort of enjoyed the travel. My wife and I, we drove most of it. We'd go to the West Coast and play out on the West Coast. And if you were playing, I never played in L.A. because it was, when I was playing, it was the last tournament on the West Coast. And you had to get back east 40 hours or something. And so you skipped one or the other.
Right.
Well, I wanted to be on Bermuda, not on that grass out west. So we just throw it in the car and off we went. And we enjoyed immensely moving around. I won a couple of mini tour events. I probably won 2 or 3 times on mini tours. The wins were always nice, but I never really threatened outside of that team event on any time on the tour itself. So there's some wonderful contacts that I made that are still alive today from out there. But for the most part, I was never completely comfortable out there, and that's why I didn't last very long.
Was there a worst part? There's something you didn't like? Or was it all pretty much...
No, it was nice. It was cool.
Yeah.
It was very cool. It's
kind of hard to say it was the worst part of playing the PGA Tour.
Yeah, well, there was frustrations, obviously.
Right.
And you feel the pressure of needing to play well. And I handled that as best I could. But I didn't process things that well. I was either really high or really low. If I played well one week, you could book I'd play well for another week or two, and then it would just kind of ebb the other way. And those were the bad times. Those were the harder times. But no, those were great memories. Now, almost 40 years removed now.
Yeah, I would agree. When you're 500 or 1,000 miles away from anybody you really know, and you're playing bad, it's just like, this is the worst thing ever.
It is hard, but I don't think the great players think that way. I really don't. Most people think like you and I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think these gifted players, these special people, they think of it just wholly different. Young Anderson, he never knows where the cut is after the first day. And if he shoots 65 or 64 the last day, he will never look and see how much money that round made him.
Mm-hmm.
I would. It's a much bigger picture. Kuchar, I got to play with Matt a good bit here for a couple of years when he was at Tech and fixing to turn pro, and Ann actually did turn pro in his first couple of years. He was hanging out here a bit, and that guy, well, first off, he's as good a guy as he seems on TV, unequivocally. It just one of the classiest people you'll ever meet. But you could sort of sense that his view wasn't what was going to happen next month. You and I had to make money,
right,
or we might not be playing next month. His view was 5-10 years down the road. He actually got his card and lost it, and I think he went on the web and won a couple of times and came back, and then won and never missed a beat
again. What's wrong with Matt Kuchar?
Yeah,
it was one of those things.
Well, he certainly went through a swing change. He dropped it considerably flatter, and that seemed to have done the trick. But he knew he was going to make it. It just was a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I never knew Curtis very well, but I'm sure he thought the same way. I'm sure Bean thought the same way. Nicholas thought that way.
Exactly. Yeah, no
and
doubt.
you and I were more, that 65 made me X. That's garbage.
Oh, I can play
They
next
would
week.
Never.
I'm
think
good for
that.
another 3 weeks.
They would never thought. They would have never thought that. I'm certain of that. So it is a completely different level at that top end. But the majority of them just need a break. The Shoffley kid just stuns me. He came out of nowhere, and his swing looks better in the heat than it does on Thursday. He just gets better and better
Yes,
as
he's
he
got
gets
that,
near the
that,
lead.
that quality, whatever it is, that it like you said,
There's something there.
the tighter everyone gets, the better he plays.
Exactly.
It's
And
like
how do you explain that? I don't think he was a rip snorter in college or coming out. I'm sure he was probably good. I don't even know where he was from. But I remember seeing his name for the first time and was wondering who that was. And then I saw the swing. I said, well, that's a beautiful golf swing.
Mm-hmm.
But that swing got better as he got into the hunt. Well, that's just and now he feels like he belongs.
Yep.
You and I never felt like we belonged. The Kuchers of the world knew they belonged.
Right. They
That's
had
the
done
difference.
it in the junior golf.
That's the difference.
So you're still a very good player. You've kept your game up. You even qualified in, I think, 2004 for the RBC Heritage, which was...
Yeah,
But-
in Harbortown. That was a
at,
delightful. Went through a section spot. I think there was just one or two spots. Usually 75 to 100 players, I guess.
20 years after you left playing.
20 years. Yeah, I was right at 50. And nabbed a spot, played a really nice round over at the Wexford Club at Hilton Head, and grabbed one of the section spots. And that was difficult, but I didn't try to see it as anything other than just a wonderful 2 days.
You didn't plan to win. You weren't beating balls and putting at midnight.
In fact, a couple of my Dirt Balls assistants made up T-shirts called Harmy's Army. And they said, Harmon return, had a picture of me on the back of the T-shirt, and they had Harmon returns to the tour Thursday and Friday. They were funny, but I had some family down. I was paired with DJ Trahan and Lucas Glover. We had
Carolina
a huge,
boys.
all
Clemson,
South Carolina
but
boys.
South Carolina boys.
Yeah, and had a huge following. I was nervous as can be. First hole at Harbortown was about as wide as its office, and I'm standing up there, and God, it's not cool, and my heart is absolutely about to jump out of my chest. And it was a 3-wood. I just pounded this 3-wood right down the gut, and it was cool. And by the time I got to the second shot, my heart was racing so much. I told my caddy, I said, it is hard to hit an 8-iron with your heart beating 220 beats a minute.
Adrenaline, everything.
It's just juiced. And I don't remember. I shot 74. So I'm like anytime I get in a tour event, I'm like a rock solid 4 handicap. I'm going to shoot 75 or 76. But I've been able to do that. I never play. I never practice. I guarantee you I have averaged over the last 10 years, I might hit balls 3 times a year. Might. I swing a weighted stick every day.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing, and that keeps me loose and keeps. I have to find my clubs most of the time to go play if somebody wants me to play, or I'll whip out my hickory here and play my hickory sticks, which I adore. But after a couple of swings, I'll find it, and if it's if I check and putt it well, I'll shoot my 65s and 66s, and so the Lord's blessed me with that. I still enjoy playing the game. At 65, I don't really play that much, or even really care that much to play. I like to pick my pretty days, like today, a 72-degree day, and
not much wind,
light
no
breezes, and I'll pick them for that, but. I don't. I'll play a little bit in the mountains where we had for the summer, and play with friends and such up there. But it's like I said earlier, I don't have that burning desire to prove anything to anybody, and that's a really nice place to be.
Well, it had to be a bit strange where 20 years removed from the tour. Now you just turned 50, or you were thereabouts, right?
Yeah.
And you got all these younger kids, and you're playing with them, but so it's not quite your group, right? It's not the guys that you knew. But then you, 6 years later, 2010, I think you qualify for the British Senior.
I did. Went over. Good friend Colin Sinclair was the pro at Carnoustie. And it was the qualifier was there. He said, "Why don't you come over and qualify?" Just one day, wrap it around a trip or whatever. And I went over and qualified. I lost. I actually was in a playoff with Gary Hallberg for one spot, just the two of us. A place called Downfield in Dundee. And now I've been overseas many times, and have had a tremendous. I think I've been to the UK close to 80 times, so I know links golf very well.
I hope so.
And so I went over, took a shot, and I think I made bogey on the first playoff hole, so I was first alternate. But did get in. I was hanging around that day. I didn't get in until the day of. I was actually asleep in the bar at Carnoustie when they came and told me.
Sleep or
not
or
drinking?
passed out?
Not drinking. No, not drinking.
We'll call it sleeping.
I said, "Come on, let's go." And literally had about an hour to grab my sticks, and off we went. And just peppered that one right off the first hole. My old friend, the pro there, Colin, gave me a big old smile, and turned in 1 under, lifted out to go 2 under, and was on the leaderboard for a millisecond, and then played the backside there, which is probably the hardest golf and hardest 9 holes in golf. That's such a butt kicker, Carnoustie. But again, just a great experience. This is what it's about. When I was at Harbor Town, my caddy, who Alan Jansen, the old beefy man here, he was he caddies for me all the time here. He's just yelling at me the whole time. Focus.
He was caddying for you
at Harbor Town.
Oh, at Harbor Town. Did he come to Britain?
No. And but at Harbor Town, where I'm like, it's taking me forever to get down the fairway, because I'll hit my tee shot and I'll walk over here and say high five, some guys over here, and then hang a left and go straight across the other side and high five. And he's yelling at me the whole time around to focus, and I can't do that. That's. In fact, he had a funny line. He said, "You look like the governor at the state fair." Well, I don't care. Okay, I don't. You're a harder competitor than I am. I cared about having a good time. That's what it was about. If I make the cut, that's very cool. I mean, lightning could strike, but that couldn't happen. Same at Carnoustie. I was just in one of the oldest championships imaginable. I don't know, it's 2010. So what? I was 40. I was 56, something like that.
Yeah, there comes a point where you have to enjoy the moment.
Correct.
And you're still trying to compete.
And see, that's consistent with how I've been my whole life. I cared, instead of on the tour worrying about making the cut, I cared about enjoying the day. So club golf was right for me. I would have been a far better amateur, probably. Been a insurance salesman and enjoyed the camaraderie of a club. But as it turned out, I morphed into this place, and it opened up that whole world times 100 on a day-to-day basis. That's what I do, and that's why I've been successful, is because I cared about, did you have a good time?
Yeah, well, you found what suited you best.
Yeah, and I tell you what, you go out to watch a tour event now, they don't even talk to one another.
Yeah, it's almost depressing.
Unbelievable. It's kind of sad, really. I'm sure there's some buddies out there, but I find that very odd. That's not really in keeping with what I think the real core and ethos of this game is about. It's about camaraderie and a good walk, and so it's kind of sad in one vein, but they also play 10 years and have 40, 50 million in the bank too.
Yeah, a little different.
So
Then they can be as
that
jovial
doesn't
and
suck either.
they can talk as much as they want. Then
So I just I think the good Lord put me right where I needed to be.
how did you make the decision to say, okay, I'm not going to pursue playing professionally anymore?
Yeah, hard, very hard.
Because I know when I got done playing, I struggle with that very, very hard. For the first time in my life, I found out what anxiety was.
I think I had already begun that transition, Pete, by being at Hilton Head. When I lost my card and missed in the school in '82, Brooks Simmons was the director of golf at Palmetto Dunes, and he let me come down and work cards. So I worked half shifts. I was schlepping. I went from signing autographs to taking quarter tips for loading guys' clubs on the car.
Harsh reality.
Yeah, but I never missed a beat. It didn't bother me at all, and I think there's the difference. It was almost a servant mentality instead of a performance mentality. I was just serving. I was just helping, which eventually led to what I made my livelihood at, which was serving in this capacity here at this club. I think I struggled with it a little bit, and I still tried to get it back in '83 and '84 and failed. And by the time '85 came around, my mentor in the professional side, Tim Moss, was at Moss Creek, and he brought me over and taught me the club business. And of course, he eventually started this, and then I followed him here in '87. So I didn't really miss that, and I think too, Pete. I think it gets back to the point that I wasn't really all that happy with it anyway. I wasn't. I went to a European Tour school during that time. Went over to try to qualify for that. It was just barking up the wrong tree, basically, and I just finally hit the wall. And
life said, no, you're going to go this way.
Yeah, it did, and also I think it's there was something about the pull of service. I just always enjoyed helping people, and that's not the mentality of a tour player.
No, it's very self-centered.
No question.
When you're there, you
No question.
have to be.
I think you have to be. I think there almost is a strain of narcissism amongst all of the number ones in the world. I think this game demands that out of you. Otherwise, you're going to make a mistake. If there's any questioning, like you said earlier, you're hung between the soft 7 or the hard 8, and you haven't made that decision, you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah, the detrimental mistake.
Nicklaus was easily, I think, the smartest player to ever play the game. I mean, I think he just thought through everything. I didn't. I didn't. Nor do I really think it mattered to me in the end. I gave it a good run, and as I said, I'm extremely fortunate to have gotten there. But these guys, the tide turned, and Tim bringing me aboard taught me something about the game, and that I think, and you probably hit this as well. I could not see myself not around the game the rest of my life. Okay, now it's either playing or in the business. You can't really do anything else. I guess you could have gotten into it in some other way, in broadcasting or whatever. But in essence, the great players of the early years of the first 150, 200 years were guys. The club pros were great players who didn't make it, and they went into the club job and then played the games with some competition, certainly to still play in and still hone their skills. But I was there because I just wanted to be around the game, and a great club pro, I think, cares as much about Mr. Jones breaking 100 for the first time as he does his junior winning the state championship, but winning the state junior. There's a great club pro is passionate almost equally in each one.
Yeah, and it sounds. I mean, you recognize that, and you have to have a good upbringing to recognize that too. So, kudos to your folks for not saying you have to do this, you have to do this.
Yeah.
And so I think that people not only have to recognize it, but understand it. I don't have to do this if it's not working, or, I'm not happy. And I think I would be happier doing this.
How many, you're a teacher, how many kids come to you with overbearing parents and the kids in full meltdown? I had the greatest parents in the world. My dad was a great athlete, didn't play golf, but he was a marvelous athlete, tennis, basketball, he played it all. And my mom was the one who could handle 100 balls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they never put pressure on me to do anything at all, ever. I sort of found my way. I may have been a little further along in perhaps the tournament side if they had done that, but that was not their deal. They knew I'd find a spot, and not only found a spot, I found one of the sweetest spots on earth.
Yeah, exactly. And to this day, my dad, we still have conversations that he said if he wonders if he would have pushed me harder in golf, if I would have. I said no, because I would have probably
melted down,
it, or did melt this, like you said, melt down, or did something else just out of angst.
Well, I think it's gotten worse. Frankly, in today's world, you hear the term snow plowing or helicopter parents.
Mm-hmm.
You see that. I don't teach that much anyway. So and being a national international club, don't really see a lot of juniors. So I haven't done that in a long time. But boy, you hear about it,
mm-hmm.
and you talk to any of these coaches at major schools, and it's a real problem.
Yeah, Conrad Ray and I had that discussion a little bit in his interview. And he said that does play a part to some extent in the recruiting process.
I'm sure. It would have to.
Yeah.
You just don't
chemistry
want
of the team and everything else.
Exactly. You don't need that. You got enough going on. You don't need to be beaten up by a parent, wonder why, little Johnny didn't play this week.
Right.
Well, there's a reason why. Whatever that may be, that's why he's in charge. So I was incredibly fortunate, and I think it lent to this kind of c'est la vie attitude that I've always had anyway. I just enjoyed having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy a beautiful walk. I enjoy a wonderful book. I enjoy my dogs. I enjoy cooking, gardening. I hunt. I fish. I like all of that.
Enjoy life.
I enjoy life.
Yeah, you're not walking down the fairway not talking to the people you're with.
No, I'm giving them a good time, as a professional should. When they come here, we don't play golf, but this place, we'll run 100 through here every day, and then 3 days later another 100 come in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm on A all the time. We'll leave here tonight, go have a couple of wines on the back porch with some of the boys, and then I'll do that again tomorrow. But I don't get a chance to go out necessarily and play with them. But I don't have to do that. We'll talk about. We'll have coffee. We'll have a dinner. We'll do that. That's what I was geared to do, and it's not easy. It's not easy. It's and as you get older, it's gotten harder to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a marvelous life.
Well, and that's what Secession is. But it's a great segue to get into the club and the history of the club. And you and I, on multiple occasions or many occasions, you've told me some of the history of the club and the hardships in the beginning and so forth, where most people in the industry or people who look up Secession think, oh, wow, it's this unbelievable club in the low country in Beaufort, and look at it, it's got everything. But they don't understand how difficult it was in the beginning.
It was very hard. Not unlike most businesses, frankly, of any scope. It took a while to get going. We had some setbacks. The place was padlocked in '93. There were about 5 or 6 of us that hung through, didn't get paid for months on end, probably 4, 5, 6 months before we.
Did your wife give you the 7-iron story? If you don't do something soon, she's going to beat you.
She's been remarkable all along. And this business this particular job took an incredible amount of time. Most pros jobs do anyway, but this one took an inordinate amount of time where I needed to travel. The trips overseas. I was always on the boards with the PGA and the Carolina section. I taught a lot. Spoke a lot, and never once did she ever say, why do you have to go there, or why do you have to play in that tournament, or why do you have to go to that board meeting, or why do you have to go to Scotland?
She understood you.
She understood what it was going to take, and at some point it'll be time to stop it and give back to her. As we get into our later years. So, but no, there were a lot of difficulties. And people ask me, why would you fight through this? Because it had a chance to be, or has still a chance to be, historic, not just successful, historic. But that was the plan from day one, and it was going to take 100 years to do that. And people say, why 100 years? Because it takes that long to get old in this game.
That's a great way to say it. It takes that long to get old.
You might could do it at 75 years. I have people that tell me that with all the internet stuff, you can maybe get more recognized sooner. I mean, Shinnecock and Myopia and Garden City and Pine Valley, they sat there for 40 years. Nobody knew there was there hardly. Now that's not the case with the media and the expansiveness of media. You can find out more. But the reason I enjoy going to Marion, the reason I enjoy going to Myopia and seeing the Taft bunker where President Taft couldn't get out of it, is because the Joneses and the Hagans and the Hogans and the Nelsons of the world have played there. And, well, they haven't played here, okay? But 100 years from now, the Kuchers of the world will have played here. And that's a historical perspective that I've always had, mainly because I'm a student of history. I've studied it my whole life. I have my degree in it. I read nonfiction constantly. That's a perspective that we had to have in order to make this place work. And the young guy comes in today and is perfectly successful, and everything's here, and it's very easy for him to pull the trigger. He has to understand that. There can be no compromises to that. It is special because of its simplicity. So don't screw it up, okay? Because something historic, well, we're 35 years now, 65 years from now, it could sit in the same breath with the other international golf clubs, and that's what sets it apart. There are a lot of successful places around us, beautiful places, but they're not international golf clubs.
Yes, I think it has gotten to that level within the golfing industry, but maybe for some people outside the industry might not know as much about Secession. Maybe they heard about it, they saw a logo. But for some of those people, could you kind of expand upon how Secession differs, or what the experience is with the caddies and the town and the whole and the name? If you want to start there.
Well, the name came out of the Secession House. There is a Secession House in Beaufort, where we are, a beautiful coastal community, or coastal town, kind of sandwiched between Savannah and Charleston. And the articles of secession were drafted in that house and taken to Charleston, and of course, ultimately ratified by the state government, and they seceded from the Union. It's a controversial word. It's a word that's, it's given us some exercise from time to time, but all in all, it's not that big of a deal. We've been wide open, races, religions, from the day we opened, and I'm proud of that. And it lends itself to certainly more men than any, because men, you have to live away, and they tend to travel together, and couples come in from time to time and certainly enjoy it as well. And women, we have many women members as well. But the thrust of it is certainly more national, and therefore probably more men than not. But this was always meant to be a intact, meaning no homes, very open linksland golf course, very windswept, mandatory walking. We have 2 carts. We've had 2 carts for 28 years now. And my job, I've always joked, is Somebody asked me in an interview many years ago, what do you see your job being over the next 20 years? And I said, well, we talked about the walk, mandatory walking, and the 2 carts. I think it's my job to make sure we don't have 3. 3. Swear that's it. Just 3. No. But you also have 100-mile radius. Only 50 people are allowed to live inside the 100-mile radius. Well, that encompasses Savannah, Charleston, Hilton Head, Bluffton. Mm-hmm. So it's not a local club. It's never meant to be a local club. You have 750 national members. So it's a unique balance to make all of that work, and you can't have a big local populace as well as that large national. So it is truly national in scope. We even have 45, 50 international members that predominantly from Europe and the UK. But this was the plan from day one. Mandatory walking, simple. Not about freaking, valet parking and sushi at the turn.
Right.
Okay, that's a byproduct of America's prosperity, but not really a byproduct of the history of this game. Mm-hmm. And it's that simplicity, very affordable. That was one of the real tenets as well. It was never a lot of money, and the annual dues are very palatable. That allowed everybody to participate. I think at one point we had 5 NFL team owners that were members. Well, we also have guys that are plumbers and tire store owners. Mm-hmm. Could care less. Don't care. They write that check just like the billionaire does. The billionaire doesn't get any benefit out of joining a club that costs him a tenth of what it would cost to buy something in Long Island. He just wants to be here. And it sets the mood of this place, and it sets the tenor of this place. And it has certainly defined the whole Secession experience of just a quiet, simple place to come for a good walk. The golf is extraordinary. The golf course is impeccable condition.
And the back porch is becoming legendary.
The back porches will be historic quicker than you can make that. That's already in one of the top spots, social spots in the game of golf. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No, the views, the camaraderie.
Well, and if you think about it, they're here. We keep people here. We can sleep, I think, close to 90 in-house. Mm-hmm. I think we do close to 12,000 bed nights a year on 16,000, 17,000 rounds.
That's without any advertising.
No advertising. Yes, leave the light on. What happens here, and then what makes it so cool, and it's about to happen out there right now. At the end of the day, they've played their 27 or 36 holes, and then they congregate on that back porch. Mm-hmm. There'll be 60, 70, 80 people out there just roaring.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Because they have nowhere to go. See, that's the key. They don't have to drive home. They don't have to go to the grocery store. They don't have to pick up the dogs or the kids or anything else. They're here. And so they're just having a blast. They're just chilled. They're just sitting on that back porch, enjoying it, along with 60 or 70 others. And now all of a sudden they start meeting people, and you get these giant circles of 15 and 20 people. Mm-hmm. That's Secession. That is
that's the culture essence that you guys have developed.
Exactly.
The mantra.
Exactly. It's not. People will see that logo. It's the famed cross flags, and they'll come up to you almost smiling with a little smirk on your face, and it's not because the golf is so extraordinary. Like you see, a Pine Valley logo. Mm-hmm. that is an extraordinary golf course, deserving of number 1 in Augusta, certainly. But they come up to you with a smile on the face because they know you've had a good time.
Right.
That's the difference. It's about the caddies. It's about the walk, the marshlands, the porch, the bartenders, the locker room attendants, the caddy master. All have been the same for 20, 25 years. That's the mark of a great club. All of your old clubs have had locker room attendants that have been there 50 years. Mm-hmm. And then it might be their son that takes it over. And he takes it for 50 years. That's the history of these wonderful clubs, and that's what we try to put into play here. Now, at 34 years, are we successful? Yes. I think you could even say we're probably on the mark for where it should be on a 100-year metric. Mm-hmm. But are we deserving of being in the class of those others? No, no,
No, it's just time.
not yet. It's time.
You have to go. You have
time.
to pay your dues on the time.
Exactly. It's got to get old. And I've often joked of you can't buy old. There's people that will spend 150 million on a project and think it should be the number one club in the world. Well, that's a lack of a historical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Is it marvelous? Absolutely. You're seeing a lot of them pop up from very wealthy people who kind of build their own places, and they hire magnificent architects and get great pieces of land, and they're very cool. I think in the end they'll always be a bit cool and sterile. Here, there's a warmth about it.
Well, yeah, it was built, and it was almost baptism by fire, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
In the early days when you guys struggled for so long. I mean, that hardens things, and
There's no
you
question.
get over that hump. And
No
now
question.
a lot of people maybe don't know the history of Augusta, where it was very similar. That
Yes.
it struggled for a long time.
Yes.
But that hardens and forges the club and the membership and the everybody that shares that they go through that difficult time, and that now they're more cohesive. And like you said, you have employees for 20, 30 years.
That's right. You're born out of adversity.
That's right.
To a degree, and out of that comes a culture and almost an ethos as to where you want to be, and it's my job, as I've sold all the memberships through the years, or almost all of them. With the young guys coming in today, they're 28 and 35 and 41 and 42. It's my job I don't have to sell them on the place. They're ready to write a check anyway. It's my job to make sure they understand that I don't care whether your club has great fire brick pizza ovens, okay, or your chef came from one of the top culinary schools in Paris. Could care less. Okay, this is about protecting what through 3.5 decades has worked very well. Now keep it for another 3.5 decades. Now you're approaching something very special, and that, whether you call that a bit self-serving or a little too close to the project, is what we intended from day one, and I think it is certainly on its way.
How do you? There's two different challenges that y'all seem to have had. Where you had the early days, it's like, how are we even going to keep the doors open? And like you said, in the early '90s, they were locked. So how do you get them reopened? So you're struggling to just get your feet under you.
Yeah.
And now, after almost 4 decades with the success you've had, now it's, well, how do you manage the success?
Well, it's very important that when you're in financial straits, you cover the finances, and we did, thanks to a great group of guys who weren't going to let the dream die. The presidents the ensuing presidents from those early days weren't going to let it die, and weren't going to let it be compromised either. So it's a coordinated effort by a lot of people, and I think now it's I use the term protection a lot. It really is about just keeping it the way it is. I mean, certainly your sheets should be of the highest thread count. Your mattresses should be good. Your range balls are good. The towels are good. You don't have to be cheap by any means. But that doesn't mean you all of a sudden have somebody waiting on you to give you a drink on the driving range.
Right.
That's a quote of elevation that frankly is diminishment in the end. To something very simple, and to just not overthink the thing is very important. And it requires Mr. Ransom at Pine Valley was one of the earliest guys here, helped put the charter together. His famous words to me, and they've just resonated through the years, says one of the finest words in the English language is one of the shortest. No. No,
Well,
we're not going to do that. There's a great story about Seminole. Some of the members thought they should have breakfast at Seminole. They only have lunch. It's been that way for 100 years, or however long the club's been there. Well, no. They just said no. He said, hey, you drive past 7 places to get something to eat in the morning on your way to the club.
Mm-hmm.
Just eat there. No. And I think when no sets the parameters. I mean, to me, that's what's wrong with our society to some degree.
Oh, I would agree.
Or these helicopter parents, to the kid. No. Okay. No, Mr. Ransom was spot on. That is a huge word in business and society. And we've held on, and the presidents that have run this show since the earliest when we opened in '91 have held to 2 cards. We've held the local, we've held to the 100-mile radius of only 50 people. We've held to a very palatable dues number and initiation number. Those are the tenets of our success. And if they were compromised in any way, I think you could have diminishment, perhaps even failure.
How do you continue for the club to grow in a never-changing world with technology and so forth? And how do you understand, or how do you determine what to incorporate that's changing and might benefit the club versus what you have to say, no, this isn't what we were founded on? How do you make that differentiation?
I think the member often signals if there's whiffs of changing this or changing that. I think the membership often steps up and puts a clamp on it. Valet parking. I've had people tell me we should have stewards to help us with your luggage, going upstairs to the dormy rooms or something like that. Well, no. Okay, I mean, there's that word again. I do. I mean, and it's the more you say it, the simpler things get. I think it probably 50 years old, so call it another 15, 20 years. I don't think you'll have to say that. I think it'll be so set in stone.
It's in the DNA. It's in the fabric by then.
I had a chance to go up to Long Island and play this past summer. I mean, I don't think there's a better trip in the world of golf than Garden City and Shenny and Maidstone and Friars Head and National. Well, National is just spectacular. And I guarantee you it hadn't changed a lick in 60, 70 years. I would bet my life on that. Well, at some point, you won't even think about changing it. Whereas a young guy today, a 35-year-old, say, well, my club does, has a 15,000 bottle wine cellar or something like that. Well, that's where you can begin to diminish the product by adding a lot of cost to it. There's plenty enough booze here to get drunk.
You're not lacking in that category.
And so it's that. Now we have wonderful wines. We have 6 or 7 selections of wines, and you can pay $200-300 a bottle for it if you want. We have that. But that's where you get caught up, and again, I said earlier, that's the prosperity of America. We've been blessed immeasurably here, right. But out of that has grown something other than golf, and so our focus has always been golf. Period. That's what brings you back, and the testaments to that are overseas for the most part. There's certainly some here, San Francisco golf. Myopia, Garden City, Shenny. I mean, all these old ones have been. I went to Fisher's Island a couple of years back. God, it's magnificent. The Chicago Golf Club. I mean, those are the testaments here. But even here, they get somewhat posh. Prestwick, Muirfield. I mean, those are 2 of the finest names you can mention overseas. That's as simple as it gets. Great lunch, coat and tie, have to be buttoned up to have a drink in the bar or to have lunch. Aside from that, that's it. There's nothing more sweeping. I told the story the other day about Prestwick, and it was 2 years ago. I was there, and I was showing some of our members of the lockers there. They went in 1860. Start of the Civil War, these lockers went in. I'm showing this little row. They call it death row because the older members get them and then they kick, and they replace them with a live member. And I'm showing them this. I'm showing them this locker, and I open it up, and the whole locker face came off in my hand. said, "Oh my God, I've broken it." I let them look inside real quick and see how unique and handcrafted they are. They're very cool. And I put this locker back into place and set it down in kind of the holes or whatever and shut it, and it stays. Somewhere on the golf course that day, it hit me that I bet you that locker's been that way for 50 years.
At least. Yeah.
He didn't care. It works. He knows how to work it. That's all that matters. Well, in the States, we'd be yelling and screaming at some maintenance guy that club's going to hell in a handbasket because his locker's loose or something. They don't care about that stuff. They care about a good, fast walk. They love foursomes, which is a pretty cool game. I have to admit, it took me a long time to evolve into it because we want to play our own game. But I mean, if you want to get on with it, it's I can play it. Prestwick, I was over there 2 years ago, played 215, 220, 18 holes.
Wow.
And then sit down for 4 hours and have lunch, 400 bottles of wine or something, but then go back out and do it again in 215, 220. They just don't care about the periphery stuff, and here we have, and I think to a large part to the diminishment of the game. I don't want to go to a club where anything you want you can get. That's not golf.
No,
that's something else.
You and Bob Walton and Tim Moss. I mean, you guys set the vision and you set the standard very high for the things that people would appreciate the most, and that you knew you could deliver on.
Yep.
And that would stand the test of time, and that's exactly what's happening to the club.
They always use the word understated elegance.
Yes, two great words.
There's an understated simplicity and elegance about this place. And I think you see that at Augusta when you go there on a day-to-day basis, not during the tournament. It's just a beautifully simple place. Now, it's obviously a very complex place when it's all said and done, but to be there on a day when there's not that much play, and you sit on that back porch and with the oaks behind the clubhouse and the sun setting out that way with a cocktail, very reminiscent of just sitting out here. Those big sweeping verandas and porches,
beautiful,
very southern feel about it all. And Tim and Bob had the vision, as did the 50 original founders. These founders put down a chunk of money for literally an island in the middle of a swamp. We used to take them around in boats to show them the land, and we'd drive them out to 17 Green and 2. Yeah, a couple of them got stuck. I wasn't on that. They ran up on a little patch of ground and got stuck and had to wait till tide came back in to get out of there. It took a long range, sophisticated high golf IQ guy to buy into that. And there's a wonderful line. I think it's called the Marigold Hotel movies. There were two of them, the exotic Marigold hotels. There's a cool story about the lady who had this hotel, and they ultimately are being bought by a big corporation, and the owner of the CEO of that corporation comes to see the lady. And she says, "Why in the world would you travel all the way to India, which was where this hotel was, just to sit and talk?" And he said, and I'm paraphrasing to some degree, "I always enjoy sitting with people whom plant trees, but who will never sit under them." So basically, we've started something that I'll not see at its peak. Tim nor Bob nor any of the original founders. Heavens, the 30-year-old today may not even see that in his lifetime, but his kids will. And that's that long-range view that every one of these people had. And I was given the honor and the opportunity to help fight for that. And as a result, it's the biggest honor of my life.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, amazing place for anyone that hasn't ever been here. They need to find somebody who can help them get here and experience it at least once. It should be on everybody's bucket list.
Yeah.
There's something I want to get into that not a whole lot of people know about, and it's something that you started. It's the mentoring program that you all do with local kids. Can you
Yes.
tell a little bit about that?
Yes, I actually did that when I was at Moss Creek. Started working with a couple of really good juniors and arranged through the club to give them sort of carte blanche at the club to hit balls, access to the golf course. It was a little harder to do there with the two kids that I started with, one of which is the head professional here today, Jason Hildreth. He was one of my first juniors.
Still with you?
Still with me. I think he's been here 22, 23 years himself now. But once we got to Beaufort and the course opened in 91, I wanted to keep it, always keep an eye out for a great young player or two, and give them that opportunity to make them as good as they could possibly be. And that was a junior program. We kind of call it the Junior Academy program. And basically, we hear about these kids through various professionals and amateur association execs. Here's a good kid. You need to take a look at this kid. And we interview the parents. We make sure that their grades are good, and they are fully made aware of the fact that if they fail in their studies, B's is what we expect, a B average, they have full privileges here. Now I make them come in and check in with either the caddy master or the pro shop. It could be nothing more than taking out the garbage. It could be washing off one of the two carts. It could be punching woods on the range, whatever, clearing off the chipping green. And for that, they then have full privileges. And then they get pulled in. We like them in the 13, 14 range. I've had some really good kids that we really missed that we should have gotten earlier, and probably could have played college golf if we gotten them earlier. We got them at 16 and 17, but it was a little too late. So that 13, 14 window is what we look for. Mark Anderson came along in that. He was 13 when he first surfaced here. And so not only do they get access to the golf course, but now they've got access to all the professionals on staff who help them with their game. We help them with all of their equipment. I've been a Titleist leadership committee or board member for, 25, 30 years, something like that. Titleist helps tremendously in helping to get clubs in these kids' hands. But these kids are good. They're shooting even. They're shooting casual high school rounds or practice rounds around even at 12, 13, 14 years old. So we're targeting the really good player in the community of Beaufort. Hilton Head has their own guys over there, but we do it here, and it has been a marvelous program. There's probably I don't know if there's 24 that have come through there, but there's quite a few. Now, what also happens is we get them in their equipment. They begin to play. I get to sit with them. What are you playing in this summer? I.e., kind of like what I should have been doing when I was putzing around playing baseball or
right,
selling.
So you
men's
basically
clubs.
taken something that you didn't have and made sure that did not affect kids in your local community the same way.
Bingo. And that was something I wanted to do from day one. And, of course, the staff's always jumped on board completely with that. But by the time they're 16 and 17, they can start to caddy. And we'll use them as a single caddy. Let's say there's a 3-ball out there. A regular caddy doesn't really want a 3-ball because he's making less money. We can use him on the 4-balls. So we'll take one of these kids on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and when they're out of school, and put them to work. All of a sudden they're making $100 for a single bag loop. That's a lot of money for a 15, 16-year-old. That's for sure. And so right now we have 4 or 5 young kids, which is the most we've ever had. All but one are 14 and under. We've got the number 1 14-year-old in the state here now. That's great. Well, he just came aboard a year ago, and we just got him fitted a year ago with Titleist, and now I look forward to seeing him explode this spring and summer. But those are the things. And then, of course, they're able to put a little money in their pocket. But then the 9/11 fund, the Levine Roach Fund, we lost 2 guys on 9/11. That scholarship program, which is totally endowed by membership only. There's no outside money in this one. We're handing out $140,000, $150,000 a year to local kids. These young kids in the academy program are now tapping into that scholarship program as well. So we really can impact some lives very nicely with that. Maximum award's 10 grand, but at the end of 4 years to have 40,000 less
Right.
and charges and debt or whatever, that's
And it's a
very
way the
special.
club gives back to the community. I mean,
No
you really
doubt.
help, and it's not
No
just the
doubt.
playing and the privileges and the clubs, but the members here at the club that they meet, whether they pursue golf or not, that they have contacts in the business world and
Absolutely.
avenues through. But like you said, they have to maintain their grades. They have to
Yep.
show up on time, do their work.
They have to submit their paperwork on time. Here's the
teaching them responsibility,
teaching them to get it in. And we've had to make some very hard decisions on kids who failed to get they may have been on it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the deadline is, I think, right around the 1st of March. They're a day late. No.
That is a hard lesson, but it's one that I bet the kids who didn't do it will not ever forget.
They won't forget it.
Right.
And I think that'll carry on for probably the remainder of their professional life.
I would not be surprised that 15 years, 20 years, whatever, an adult walks in here and they introduce themselves and they say, Mr. Harmon, you taught me a lesson when I was a kid, and it helped me do this in my career, and now I'm very successful and so forth. And you won't even know who they are until they tell you their name.
All because we said that word again.
Yes.
Those are the boundaries. Those are the parameters. That's the structure that's required for a successful individual. And a lot of times the parents will, piss and moan about that, and we don't care. It is about teaching them responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
and we're willing to help them, and they have to. We're not asking for a whole lot, but we are asking for some accountability. So these young kids now in this program now have gone from 13. Who knows where they're playing? We've had 2 state junior champions. Anderson won the state amateur, and has played on the tour 3-4 times over the last 4, 5, 6 years. I don't doubt that there'll be more in the years to come. It wouldn't matter. I could care less whether they played or not. They're good kids, and we're helping them. And if they go on to play, great. A lot of them feel some pressure that they have to play well, and I speak with them regularly about that. That's not what this is about at all. You're here because you're a good kid, and you love the game, and you can play a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll just see how good we can make you. Very special. Special to me. That's what I needed. I needed somebody to grab me. My coach, Jim Gunter, he grabbed me and brought me off the streets into a driving range, but he had no experience of having played the tour or having played at the highest levels. I'll sit down and talk to these kids. Art, you need to be playing in the North-South this year. Can you get that? Are you going to play in the state amateur? You're going to play in the U.S. Open, U.S. amateur qualifier. You're 14, 15 years old. Give it a shot. Who knows? I mean,
you never know.
If
see how good
he
you
gets
are.
through, it's an experience of a lifetime. That's stacking it up to make them as good as they can possibly be. And then they go on, whether they're playing college golf or not, doesn't really matter to us. I don't doubt the guy that runs our accommodations came out of the caddy ranks and the 9/11 fund to come back and handle 12,000 bed nights a year for us.
That's awesome.
He's one of the top employees at the club. So we've seen this thing come full circle. Or I've had a chance to see it come full circle just because I've been here so long. It's just delightful to see. And right now I'm really juiced by the fact that there's 4 or 5 great young players in the city.
Mm-hmm.
This is a small town for the most part, but there are 4 or 5 really good players, and I've met with them. We've met with the parents. They're over the moon about this, and this has been a real joy for me. And we talked earlier before we went on mic was about my own assistants and players. I'm always looking for the player.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's the amateur or whether he's going to be working here, because that I can teach a kid how to do anything in this business: budgets, teaching, rules, merchandising. We won the National Merchandiser of the Year award with the PGA out of the shops, 400 square feet or 450 square feet. I think it's the smallest shop to ever win that.
That's amazing.
Maybe Pine Valley. I think Pine Valley may have done that. They're smaller than we are. I'll bring, I can teach a kid anything in this business. I can't teach him how to shoot 66. That's instant. That's immediate respect from the member. Immediate. And that cannot be replaced. That opens up doors for lessons. That opens up doors to go play in pro-ams, travel the world. I've traveled the world because I was here, but also I got this job because I could play. Tim and Bob thought the same way, and I have carried that with me all along. I've been barking at the PGA for a long time that those playing standards need to be lower, because we can teach. Sure, you're going to turn away good kids. I don't care if that kid can't break 80. What his chances of moving up in this game are fairly slim. He could be the nicest guy on earth, and he could run a club, but what kind of respect does he have amongst the membership if he can't beat half of the membership?
Even if they're not going to say it.
Yeah, I mean, you're a good player. You've earned your respect as a player, and I when I go to hire a kid, I'll have somebody call me and say, "Bro, I got a good kid. I heard you had an opening." And so, can he play? And he's 75 probably on casual days. No. I want the kid that can win the South Carolina Open. Mm-hmm. We've got a litany of championship trophies around here from assistants through the years that have won state opens and Carolinas opens and national qualifyings and such. Because for me, it speaks volumes about the club, and it speaks volumes about my staff when I put them out there to play in them, just a game, fill in for with a 3-ball, and they shoot 65.
Yeah, or they're traveling and they're wearing the Secession logo.
Bingo.
Which is probably as recognizable around the globe as any logo in golf.
That is true. So it is just like the juniors. I'm still looking for those same kids in my golf shop as well. Mm-hmm. And we've been very fortunate to have had a ton of great kids, many, well over a dozen, probably close to 15 or 20 now, I guess, that have gone on to their own head professional jobs.
Right.
And just make me proud. We had the pro member back in February, and God, I think there were 8 or 9 that were back with
like alumni.
Members from the. It was marvelous.
Pretty cool.
We had a terrific time, and I'm proud of all of them. They represent the club. They've represented me wonderfully through the years, and I look forward to their many successes. A lot of them have already won awards unto themselves. The
carrying on the
merchandising, and they've been involved with education. One of them's going to be Chris Bird's going to be the president of the Carolinas section next year. Mm-hmm. So it's neat to see. Again, that's the position from age that allows you to see that and see it come full circle. But I think we as an association, the PGA, have missed that to some degree. They lost sight of the importance of being able to play the game well, and hopefully they'll get that back.
Before we get into the kind of the last part, I want the cannon in front of the clubhouse.
Yes,
that's a very unique thing that you guys do with that.
Right.
And I love the stories. You can obviously tell it much better than I can. Can you just explain the story of the cannon and what it represents and means, and the battle that goes into who gets to point it where?
Yeah, this goes back as an honor to Dick Deal, who, in my opinion, was the savior of this place. Mm-hmm. He put it all together in that 93, 94 era, eventually built a clubhouse, and as an honor to him, 3 members bought this Napoleon cannon and functioning cannon, and we fire it at every event. The champion from the year before comes back into town as the defending champion and gets to fire it before the tournament dinner.
That's the blue-gray tournament, right?
That's all of them, all the club events.
Okay.
So the captains for the blue and the gray, the gray tends to dominate the blue. In the blue-gray, I think we played 25 or 30 of those things now, and Southern boys put a ass kicking on the North. I think it's like 25-5 or something like that. I think the only reason is because the Southern boys are still fighting the war. The North won. They don't care. They just come down and have a good time. But the winning captain, fires it the following year. But the member guests, the pro members, the winners fire it the following year. I can assure you they think about it a lot during the course of the year. It points based on the blue-gray outcome. It points, and so with that many Southern victories, it tends to point north, where the South's firing on the north.
So just so that I know it, but some people that might not know it, that the blue-gray is the Northern members are a team, and the gray is the Southern members are a team.
Correct.
And you have about
120, 110 to 120 all members.
Tournament, like a match, like a Ryder Cup style.
Right. They play better ball on Thursday, practice rounds Tuesday and Wednesday. Some will come in on Saturday. A lot of them come in and don't even play. They just sit on the porch.
I think a lot of them circle that week in their calendar every year.
They do. And we play better ball on Thursday, alternate shot on Friday. We've maintained that tradition, and then singles on Saturday. And it's usually split pretty well. We used to be heavily northern in the early years, but as the notoriety of the club's grown, we've picked up more in the south. So it's not far from 50-50 as far as north and south. And so we'll rob some of the boys from the north that may own property in the south if we need some southern boys. But they've always accused us of stealing the good players and putting them on there, which is BS. But we had they'll come in and they'll play, and then whoever wins, you point the cannon from the south to the north, let's say, or if the north wins, it points south during the years. Well, in the early years, there was, and this thing's loud. It'll blow I think it blows a 4 or 5 pound ball about a mile and a half, something like that. It works. And we pointed it from the south to the north, and I remember the evening well. It was a real foggy evening. It was a full tide. So we blow this thing off before dinner, and I'm sitting in there having dinner with the boys, and one of the waiters came over to me and said, there's a policeman out front. I said, all right. So I'd had a couple glasses of wine. Had a smile on my face. I walk outside, and I said, hey, how you doing? I'm Mike Harmon. I'm the golf pro here. And I'll never forget this guy's name. His name's, hello, Mr. Harmon. My name is Deputy Fripp. He said, and we got to do something about your cannon. I said, Deputy Fripp, tell me the truth. Now, I was tuned up. I said, tell me the truth. Have you ever said that in your career?
He wasn't expecting that.
What we did when we blew the cannon, there's a house about a mile away. We blew 2 pictures off the walls and about 20 books onto the floor. The dog went nuts. The guy called the police, and so we had a good time with that. They did a sound testing the next week. I mean, there's F-35s and F-18s flying over this guy's house. I mean, it didn't even register compared to those things. So no, it was. But I think the guy's name is Freeman, actually. As in honor of Mr. Freeman, we fire it south all the time now instead of north, and then turn it, when it's all said and done. So it's pointing north again for the 100th time or whatever. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, but it's loud and it never gets old. Just a little toy, It's so funny. If it depends on how much of a charge you put in it. We usually fire it at about a third of a charge, but if Bert Carter's the irrigation tech here, has been here 25 years plus, and he handles all the cannon firings, and he'll slip half a load in there every now and then, and you can always tell it too, because when you fire, you got 100 people out on the front porch, and they blow it off, and you roar, and then they all pile in for dinner, and you walk out there afterwards, you'll see about 20 wine spills, where it's a lot louder than you think it's going to be. They spill wine all over the place. But a great tradition and a worthy honor to Mr. Deal. It's called the Real Deal. and he was the savior of the place. I mean, we had to fight it out. He was president for 11 years, and saw it through some really bleak times, and then saw the roar of the 90s, the late 90s, and he built the clubhouse, and never really looked back after that.
I remember when you guys were in the caddy shack.
Oh,
When the clubhouse was a caddy shack. I still
Absolutely.
have the flag, the frame flag I bought the first time I came here, I think in 94, 95, something
This
like
opened in 96. We were 5 years in that caddy shack.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like we said earlier, it was still fine. There was nobody here. We were playing 4,000 rounds a year. It was very empty.
Got a lot of reading in.
Golf course was golf course was still very immature in a lot of ways. It's been modified a little bit by Mr. Devlin's. This is Bruce Devlin's baby, no doubt about it. This is easily his best work, and very deserving of the kudos that it's gotten based on his work.
What was the controversy, or for lack of a better term, about the 14th? Is it the 14th hole and the green?
Yeah, the that goes back to the dyes. The dyes were originally scheduled to do this, and Pete got jammed up with Kiowa, and we had some issues, and I was here during that, but it ended up with them leaving, and they searched around and had picked Bruce, and easily one of the finest gentlemen I've met in this game. He's just an outstanding guy, world-class player. He's done a couple hundred golf courses around the world. He almost won Augusta a couple of times. I forget how many times he'd won worldwide, but it's a chunk. I mean, he's a marvelous player, but just a outstanding guy. A lot of fun to be around, and he took this one over in its rough shape mode and finished it off, and has just done a tremendous job with it, and I couldn't be happier for him. I think he just turned 80 and still kicking. We have a Devlin Cup. It's an invitational scratch better ball that we play late May, early June in his honor, and he just did a great job. But he and Dick and all those original founders, you look back on this and you just marvel at where it is today. But the honor of having Bruce's name on a tournament and having the cannon in Mr. Deal's name is very special. And that's what great clubs do. They have these traditions, they have these honors, and
they keep them.
And they keep them. I remember having lunch in Sunningdale with the captain, and on a trip many years ago, and we had lunch in the awards room. I mean, there wasn't a square inch of that room that didn't have a name and a date associated to it. Tournament boards, club championship boards. There were breaks. When you travel overseas, and in the U.S. to some degree, you see breaks for World War I and World War II. Sunningdale had a break for the Boer War. It's like 1895 or something like that. I mean, and again, that's old. See, that's old. And our boards are beginning to get long. Our boards will, it's a gold paint, gold lettering that goes on, and now within another few years we'll have to have another board. That's old.
That's a good problem to have.
Well, we've been just we have so many traditions. The chip off the back porch is another one, where we decide our tournaments. You just hit off a doormat if it's tight, and go to the 18th green. We used to do a playoff around the loop on 16, 17, 18. Well, everybody's gone by the time it's done. So now we settle it in the backyard, right in back, and then people just roar. If it's tied, it's a little chip off of the porch. You get 2 balls off the doormat, and it's been held probably 5-6 times into a roar that you just can't believe. They hole it out and the place just goes nuts. So those are traditions that linger, and hopefully, and I'm sure they will be carried on.
Yeah, to good purpose.
Yeah.
Let's move. into today's game. So your career, I don't want to date you to anybody that doesn't know you, but let's just say it's spanned the modern era. You've seen everything from woods to metal to titanium, wound balls. I wouldn't say you were good at Percha era. to today's
Yeah, you look good in this Coke.
prodigious length. But in all that you've seen, with all the technology and so forth, what do you see as good, and then what do you see as bad?
I don't like seeing the ball go 400 yards. But in sport, that's almost inevitable to some degree. There's reasons why high jumpers jump higher, and mainly because they're bigger. You're a teacher. I don't teach much, but you get a kid that's 6'4" and has a 40-inch arm. He's going to hit it further than me at 5'11" and a 32-inch arm. I don't care how much. Now, what's amazing to me, and we see a lot of college kids come through here, I see a lot of small kids generating a ton of club head speed.
Mm-hmm.
So they've learned to hit their ball hard. Now, that gets back to the equipment again, because you can miss clubs in today's era and still somewhat get away with it, somewhat. Obviously, a 350-yard driver is going to be markedly more offline than a 250-yard on the same block rider or the hook. But you look at a guy like Koepka or DJ. I mean, they're just specimens.
Special athletes. I mean, they're athletes.
They're athletes. They could have probably played in the NFL,
mm-hmm.
or they could have been at Wimbledon. You know, it's just whatever they had chosen to do. So I don't know that there's volumes you can do about that. Isn't it remarkable how the great classic old courses, even with all of the bombers in the world, almost invariably still produce a 8 or a 7 under score, winning score. And they can build it 9,000 yards long if they want, and they'll still shoot 22 under par.
They'll find a way. It's the competitive athletic nature of a top-level world-class athlete.
But like Ridgewood up in New Jersey, they host the RBC there about every 2 or 3 years. Classic golf course, like a Baltusrol, but they don't set it up in an open type of setting. I mean, it 5, 6, 7 under wins. Even Harbortown tends to hold itself up well.
Yeah, it's one of the shortest courses on the tour.
Exactly.
It's always around 10 to 12 under, I think.
It holds its head up. So I think that may be a little more about design than it is about the equipment. But I do think the kids' ability to hit their ball just prodigious distances is probably somewhat of a problem. But I don't know that they know how to play shots as much. They know how to flight their ball.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to hit the ball straight, and they know how to hit a half, a 3/4, and a full, and they know how to hit it at 75% flight, 50% flight, and 25. They know how to do that. But back in the old days when we had softballs and forged heads, if the Ken Venturis of the world would tell you to cut the 6 into the back right and hook the 7 into the back left.
Mm-hmm.
You moved your ball based on the shot that was in front of you. And guys like Nicklaus, they would do that and never. There's a great story about Nicklaus. We had this discussion the other day. In 72 holes at Augusta, he never crossed the line with an iron shot. Meaning he hit a left or right shot,
mm-hmm.
and it never went right. It never landed right of the stick in 72 holes. That's insane.
That's amazing.
I mean, that is just insane control. I don't see that necessarily today. I think they have shots, but the equipment, the ball doesn't move as much. The perimeter weighting allows them to sort of get away with mishits, mm-hmm. and there is an advantage to a guy like DJ to just pound the bejeebies out of it, and if it ends up 95 yards short of the green, he's going to have a great look at birdie. If he misses it 50 yards offline, more or less, he's probably able to make par. Now, that's more design than it is,
right.
Frankly.
I would agree.
Why the Open Championships with the grass up to your knees, allows for an even par winning score.
Mm-hmm.
I played Shinnecock this past year, not for the first time, but what a stunning place that is. I mean, that might be the best golf course in the country. You can argue Oakmont, you can argue Cypress, Pine Valley, and Augusta, each unto their own. Marion, I adore Marion. But these are, when you grow it up to your knees, that's a whole different animal. And but week in, week out, these TPC courses that have been designed to host 200,000 people or something like that, they're big, they're long, and they seem to think the longer they make it, the tougher they'll make it. That doesn't ever seem to be the case.
No, not at all.
They just keep hitting it further and further. So I don't see the shot making of a Lee Trevino. I never was around Trevino. I don't think we ever met. But I guarantee you, when he sees a guy with a one-shot lead playing the 72nd hole on a good golf course, and this guy literally just has to drive it in the fairway, and he's going to win the golf tournament, and he can't. He must just fall off the sofa. I mean, he was a piece of work anyway, but you can just hear that because they didn't miss. They didn't miss those. They had a shot that got their ball in play.
Mm-hmm.
They found the fairway. That was all. And it's annoying to me to see how many fairways these guys miss. We saw that in the Ryder Cup over in France. They weren't able to drive their ball in play, and the Europeans did, and that's pretty much the difference. They had the rough up to their knees, and you had to gouge out, and you pretty much had a bogey on your card. So that's, I think, the biggest thing. But like we said earlier, they come out shooting nothing. They're not afraid to shoot 61 or 58 or something. They don't balk at that. That wasn't the case when I was playing. The Andy Beans and the Johnny Millers of the world shot nothing. I thought Norman pretty much revolutionized the game to a large degree himself. Mm-hmm. I mean, he would call a number. It was remarkable. I mean, he had the second longest run of number one in the world, behind Tiger.
Right.
He had, they'd interview him. You can just see him sitting in the booth with Nance and such, and they'd say, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I think if I shoot 62 tomorrow, I have a chance. I think 61 wins. I don't know."
He was
60.
Serious.
He was dead serious, and he often did it, and it was right a lot of times. So to me, he and Miller sort of pressed the gauge that has now set you up to the point where these guys just expect to shoot nothing every time they play.
Right.
So it has changed, but it's the most splendid game in the world, and it's the most diabolical game in the world. So in the end, I remember an old caddy, a Scottish caddy, said something to me many years ago. I've never forgotten. He said, "Pro, just remember one thing. The game always wins."
It's like the house.
The win, like the house, right? The game always wins, and that's exactly right. And these guys, I think they're the Koepkas and the Bombers of the world. They'll just take their shots, and if it works that week, fine. If it doesn't, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That they'll just take their shots, and they'll try to drive it down on number 2 at Harbortown, around the corner where they can have a 7-iron in, where they could hit 3-wood. 4-iron on, or 3-wood 3-iron.
They're going to go at number 9.
Or number 9, take a shot at it. And if it's their week, then it works. And if it doesn't work, they just head to the next site and do it again. I think there was more shot making in the older days, but again, the great golf courses still hold their own. We're only a couple of weeks away from Augusta. That baby holds its own. There's
Pretty
no
good.
doubt. Now they've made it longer to adapt to that, but it's those green complexes that make them so diabolical. Mm-hmm. And so that old girl still stands up beautifully. But no, I think, and of course agronomy has gotten far better. But when I played the tour, those courses didn't suck. I mean, they were good. They were in fine shape. But you played places like the BC Open at Enjoy. Well, it was as wide as this room. I mean, it was narrow and had some pretty good rough on it. Mm-hmm. You had to thread your ball around. These guys would get lost playing there. They just probably wouldn't play there. So we had to kind of we had to make shots. The great players. I was never a cutter of the ball. I was sling hook this sucker out there. And, I love that, and that was the glaring omission in my game. I think was the fact that I couldn't hold something against the wind. I could drive, I could hit it with a little cut. So if I needed it in the fairway, I hit that little baby cut. And now I don't know that there's that much shot making per se involved with it. There's just more touch, and with regards to flighting. Tiger was the best flighter of the ball ever in my book. He taught a whole generation how to play the game, and he was. I'm so happy I got to see him play. I know he had his issues. I don't care less. He's not my spiritual guide. Okay, I'm just there to watch him play golf, and I know I sat around clubs for 30 years and 40 years watching the pros and the old pros. Whenever he was on, those old pros, right to the TV.
Yeah,
they wanted to see him play. He'd sit in there and hit a three-quarter 50% low 7-iron, burn it in and right to left, landed 15 feet right of the stick and suck it to the hole to 5 feet, and then turn around the next hole and hit some high carving 4-iron in there. Mesmerizing, absolutely mesmerizing. So I didn't get to see Nicklaus really. He was pretty. Obviously he still won in '86. He was still playing at Augusta. He won in '80 at the Open I played at Baltusrol.
Right. Yeah.
And he was certainly playing well. But I didn't grow up watching him play per se. And nor was there a lot of TV. Frankly, we didn't, you'd see a couple hours on a Saturday and a Sunday. That's about it. Now you see them, wash their car in the morning before they go to the freaking golf course. It's amazing.
Next to having in the gym.
That's a problem for me. I get so tired of listening to the dialogue day after day after day. I'm just beating a dead horse, man. Turn this thing
that seems
on.
To be the thing in all sports, that they analyze it to death. Jeez. Before and after. It's like, oh, geez.
Well, and I guess I don't mind that so much. What bothers me is that they actually think they know what's going to happen. I mean, this is the greatest game in the world. They can't tell squat of what's going to happen. You can have an opinion. At least just say, well, I think this might happen.
About as accurate as a weatherman.
Yeah, exactly. That drives me nuts. So I don't listen to much of it. I think it's there's a lot of good people in that business, and they know, and a lot of the players have stepped in and done a great job. The consummate professionals like Nance, those are very special people, and all the players that have joined them through the years, I know they get a kick out of it. But I'm a big English soccer fan, and it just drives me nuts listening to commentators tell me what's going to happen in a soccer game. Well, you can't tell me anything. You can have an opinion on it, but a soccer game, get a lucky goal, or get a penalty in the box, all of a sudden the underdog's down 1, they park the bus in front of the goal, they win 1-0, when the super commentator thinks that Chelsea should win by 3.
Right.
No, you got to play the game. And they seem to lose sight of that sometimes, but it's a job, I guess. But it's I love the cameras, the camera work. Watching it nowadays is incredibly special. I mean, as a teacher, you must love that. These
the shot tracer in particular.
The shot tracer is huge. That's a big ad. I don't know who started that. Was it Fox?
I don't remember.
I don't think it was one of the majors. I think it may have been Fox. That's just revolutionary to me, because I adore seeing what they're doing with the ball. So it's a cool time. And of course we've got Augusta around the corner. I'm a Atlanta boy, and there's nothing like that week. It's the greatest week of the year.
Special week, isn't it?
Oh, it's the best week of the year. I just see that. I hear the commercial music, and just
like Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, just that music. They show the azaleas and such. Oh, baby, and nothing like that. So I look forward to it. And they've, I know they've made quite a few changes. And again, as they always do, it's kind of like Muirfield. I think Muirfield in Dublin is the one Mr. Nicklaus did is easily one of the top 5 modern golf courses of post 1960. 60.
Yeah, very pretty place.
Modern edge. Well, modern edge. It's not only pretty, but through the years they've modified it because they're the best players in the world playing it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Augusta's done the same thing, and they've learned what to do here and what to do there, and they just turned it into an absolute treasure. I've had a chance to play it 4 or 5 times, and it in St. Andrews. That's the I'd be hard pressed to figure out if I only had one round to
if you
play.
had to flip a quarter
which
for that one.
that would be. Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to pick that one.
So, I want to get into. I'll stick to. There's so many facets of golf, right? And hence, when I came up with the name Golf 360, there's so many things to talk about in this game. But I'll stick with your expertise as far as what you've been doing for the last 30 plus years, almost 40 years, the club side. So, if you were King Mike of the PGA of America, what would you change within the club side of the industry?
Oof, that's a heck of a question. Well, we mentioned earlier about the playing. I'd have that playing mark for playing ability test. I'd have that thing at probably 144, 146. Like I said, I can teach a good player the business. I can't teach a good business kid how to shoot 66.
Right.
I would change that. I have often thought there's too many assistants for each club. I think they allot 2 per 9.
Right. I would agree.
I'd probably like to see that half. I can find nice people to work in the shop to ring things up or answer the phones.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were to cut that in half, I would. I think the young kids coming along, we could take better care of them at the club level and pay, because you're paying
Less people. Right.
You're paying the same number of people, but don't have to pay them the local person to help you in the shop nearly as much, perhaps. And so you give them a little more of an earning wage, which is hard to do these days with at the assistant level. But we all paid that price, but when the time comes for them to go look for a job, instead of having 400 applications, you may only have to beat out 100. Or 200, or if there's 75, you only have to beat out 35.
Right.
I think you're going to get the same quality at each of the club levels, but I don't think there'll be as many. I don't think there'll be more of an advantage and an opportunity for the young pros. Seth Waugh is now the president, CEO, whatever his title is for the PGA. Seth was a member here for many years. Wonderful, wonderful guy. And one of the first things I heard him talk about was a pension.
Now, that would be interesting.
I have no pension. I got guys have been, there's pros have been at clubs 40 and 50 years with no pension. They had to put their own money away.
Right.
And there's a lot of money that the PGA makes between the championship and the Ryder Cup. I know that number, and it's a substantial number. I would love to see him do that. I don't care if it's $500 a month. I could care less. I think what's important is a guy spends 40 years of his life in this business. I can have a nice car on that payment,
right,
in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they have a ways to go. I don't think they can. I haven't talked to Seth since he got the job, but you couldn't ask for a finer person there. So I wish him luck, and hopefully they'll continue to help the plight of the club pro. Who I am absolutely astonished at how badly so many great club professionals at great clubs leave their jobs.
Yeah, it's you get a job at some of these clubs, and you should be there for life, without a doubt. I mean, with the history of the club, as we talked about earlier, it makes you wonder. Well, why are they not? Why are they leaving? I
can discount. We had this conversation today on the back porch. I I can rip off 6 or 8 people right now that just left badly at the end of a long career, and these are the hallmarks of the of club golf in America. A lot of them do it right. They do, and God bless them. So maybe they can figure that one out. I don't know. It's not the end of the world. We've gotten through it, but I think you have a terrific guy in the leadership role. So we'll see what happens. They continue to grow the game to some degree. You and I have talked about this before, where there's limits to it because it's so expensive. Right. It's an expensive game. It's just not something that can matriculate down to the mid to lower class economic classes because it's expensive.
It's time consuming as well.
And it's time consuming. Now, I have always said that in 1830 and 1840, when you were at St. Andrews, it took about the same time to walk from downtown St. Andrews out to the Eden River and back as it does today. Okay, so all right, it didn't shorten through 2 centuries, and a feathery was as much as a workman's monthly wage, a feathery ball. So it was always time consuming and it was always expensive. Mm-hmm. I think that the PGA and the USGA hoped that they, and perhaps Tiger was the Pied Piper to some degree for this, that they would be able to get this into some of the mid-lower classes. And they certainly made a great effort, and they brought a lot of people to the game. I don't know that I don't see the facts on that, but hopefully they brought a few more into the game. But I don't care where you are, you're going to have a budget of $500,000 or so between maintenance and somebody to run the operation. If it's 3-4 people and you got a couple hundred, you got $300,000 for operation, and that's not a really good golf course, maintenance wise. And another $100,000 or so to run the show. That's absolute bare bones. Mm-hmm. Well, when you have something like that, you can't charge $100 green fees.
So the income's not.
The income,
very difficult.
Yeah, the maintenance budget eventually parallels what you can charge, and so it's just it costs a lot of money. It costs $1 million or so to run an operation on a fairly small scale, and so you end up pricing yourself out of it to some degree for the mid to low economic levels. So it's very hard, and that's why we do what we do. The kids we look at are ones who don't have perhaps a lot of options, and now we can help them. If everybody did that, if every club did that, I think we'd probably help a lot more people. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately they figure out whether they play the game or just in college or professionally, and or just play the game for the rest of their lives. Either way, we're the beneficiaries.
Yeah, you're setting the foundation, and they're building upon that. But you guys are helping instill that.
And I just there has to be some way to work. I've often talked. I did an interview not too long ago, and we talked about park golf, where the developers over the last 20 years built golf courses the game didn't need, so it watered down everything. The developer didn't care whether the golf operation worked. All he cared about was selling the property around the golf course.
The golf view.
Well, right. If 50 people or 100 people went there and they left another place, that watered down the other place, and that can't work in the new community either. So a lot of these places have a golf course, supposedly, or what used to be a golf course in their backyard on a real estate project. Now their real estate's deflated because there's not a golf course back there, which is what they bought on. Mm-hmm. And you've got open space that can't be deemed to be anything other than a golf course or a common area, if you will. And that's where I talked to a guy once about park golf, where you just cut everything at the same height, greens, fairways, tees, everything. I mean, there's a gang mower, just pull behind. You just cut the grass. For the greens, you just let it grow, put a stake in the ground, Big piece of PVC, 6-inch PVC, paint it black and white, plop it down in the middle of the green. Now you and I go play. We both hit it to 150. I hit it 20 feet. You hit it 10 feet. I chip, not putt. There's no cup. I chip, try to hit the pole. I miss. You chip, hit the pole. You've made 3. I've made 4. We are playing golf. Now, that dates back to the early days of golf in the 1700s or so, where they played in the parks, where you and I would just play across a huge park and hit Mr. Jones's fence post.
That's how we used to play as kids.
Absolutely. Hit a tree.
We tape up wiffle balls so they'd go further, plug up the holes.
Correct.
And then the first one to hit the base of the tree.
Hit a tree, hit a, whatever it may be.
We'd pick 9 trees around the yard, and that was our 9-hole golf course.
Well, the theory behind the park golf would be that the community sort of gets behind it. So if you had a property on that golf course, you cut your yard to the fairway line. Now you could run that operation for probably $100,000. You could probably get the PGA to back some of these projects. That could be your first tee program. A dad could take his kid out there and play for $10 and $5 or something.
Yeah,
I don't care if you put money through the door.
To the game.
It does. And the community begins to thrive a little bit, because not only is it a golf course, but if you want to go play a baseball game out there. I mean, how many times were we playing baseball on the street and we just had to move aside to let a car through? Okay, well, it's kind of the same. It's a park. That's why I call
Kids
it park
don't care.
golf.
They just want to play.
Just want to play. But you know as well as I do that kid who's playing with his dad, who's chipping to try to hit this post and sees the boys on TV playing, eventually he's going to want to go somewhere else to play. Well, you could run that operation on probably $100,000, $200,000 and make it work and clean up a neighborhood. Well, I spoke to a few people about that.
Where's it happen?
You would absolutely think I was from frickin' Mars. Okay, they didn't get that at all. A couple here, one upstate. Talked to the PGA about it. Somebody in the office. I gave that up. I still think it would work. I still think there's probably a perfect scenario for that somewhere. That's no different, really, outside of the green complexes than what you see in the little 9-hole villages. The villages in Scotland in Ireland that have a little 9-holer, and the community takes care of it. Yeah, you got one guy that cuts a green, or this is the artisan society that you hear about over there, where there'll be 20 or 30 guys that are part of the artisans club at a particular club. Have them at some of the finest clubs in the world: Liverpool, St. Anne's, Lytham, where there's a group of guys who are given playing rights, limited playing rights, for filling sand and raking bunkers, filling divots and such. Well, boil it down a little further, and there's the little 9-hole community up in the northern part of Scotland that a handful of guys take care of the golf course. There may be one greenskeeper, and he probably collects your money as well when you play. Very simple, but God, I gave up on that one. I'll let somebody else fight that war.
You never know. Don't give up.
I'd love to see it happen one day. I really would. I'd love to see what would happen. I'd love to see the PGA actually fund some of that. I mean, with the kids coming out of school, you got a clubhouse probably that's sitting there. You can put the kid in the clubhouse. They don't live there. Give him a truck, pay him $50,000 a year. Now he's got a place to live and a truck.
Just and $50,000, he's not spending $1,000 on rent and $500 on anything.
Exactly. He actually nets out better.
Right.
But that was a stretch.
Let me ask you about your mentoring assistant program, not the mentoring program you have for local kids, but you've mentored a lot of assistants here, and we touched on it briefly before, but they always go on to do some very, very nice and great things. What's your secret sauce, so to speak? I mean, outside of being a good player, because you get these guys are good players, but you still develop them. Turn them into where they're going to some very good clubs and then winning awards.
Well, I'm fortunate, as are the great clubs, and there are so many wonderful professionals in this country who do the same thing. I can think of Brendan Walsh at Brookline, Scotty Nye, and Bobby Ford at Seminole. There's just so many great pros that represent great places. And because we represent these wonderful places, young professionals want them on that resume. So we do get, to a large degree, the cream of the crop. and they know also by coming here that more than likely, as long as they behave and do a good job, they're going to get a good job. They're going to get a job. Now, it may not be their end job, but they are going to get a job. I have a lot of young guys come to work for us that may only be 22, 23 years old. Well, they have another move in their future, and that's where I help them as well. So if I have a kid, let's say who's 22 or 23 right out of school, who may work here 3 or 4 years, 5 years, he's 27, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's got another move. And then that's where I ask them, where do they want to go? If you're from the Midwest, do you want to go to the Midwest? Do you want to go to Florida? Where do you want to stay in the Carolinas? Do you want to go to the Northeast? It could be a New York boy. It could be a Maine boy. Do you want to go back home? Well, based on what they tell me, then my job is to make sure they get a great job. Well, obviously do a good job here so that I can recommend them. But ultimately, if they want to end up into the Northeast, I will help get them into the Northeast at the second stage of their assistant career, so that by the time they're 32, 33, they've worked a couple of good places, they're good players, may have won a state title, and now they're working at one of the top clubs in the Northeast. And now when a job opens up and he's won the Med Open or whatever, boom, he's in the door. And so we take this very seriously. This is my job as a mentor, as a proper professional. And we teach them the ins and outs of every element of this operation. I own the shop here. They see how much money I make. I show them everything, because I want them to know how you make money out of a shop. Real problem with guys, and you don't see many people that own their shops now.
No,
that's pretty much bygone days. But I show them how, in a free enterprise system, you make money in this particular setting.
Mm-hmm.
They see all of my numbers. I get them involved with the payables, get them involved with the buy. And then as we're going through the seasons, we're paying off hundreds of thousands of dollars in invoices. And then there's taxes, and then there's insurance, and there's expenses, and there's commissions. I pay commissions, and club professionals that own their shop should be paying their assistants commissions. I'll say that to you boys right now. They should be paying something. They're the ones selling for you.
Right.
So at the end of it, they're your sales staff. So at the end of it, there's X. There's just X left over.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. And if I buy right and we sell correctly to a certain pro forma and pattern that we use to buy, which I show them, then there should be X left over. And they see that. And that's just good basic sense when it comes to capitalism and free enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And so they leave here armed, I think, ready to go. Obviously, we have a tremendous reach with the international club, so we can generally get these kids right into the area they want to go. But once they're with us a couple of years, I'll often talk about it, not always in the interview, but where do you want to go? Also, do you want to be in a resort? Do you want to be in private? Do you want to be in daily fee? There's a lot of freedom in resort and daily fee. You get some jerk in there, you can kick him out.
Right.
Call the police, just take him out. Can't do that to a member.
Nope.
So there's a lot of politics. I can teach them the political angle. I can teach them the budgeting. I can teach them the teaching side of it. But as I said, I can't teach them how to score. And that's the instant respect amongst the membership. And so we've been blessed to have tons of great kids. And as I said earlier, I'm so proud of all of them. They've done a terrific job and represent not only me but the club beautifully. So but this is, I think it has to be at the forefront of the head professional or the director's golf job to make sure that these kids are moving in the right direction. And a lot of them don't care.
I've always said that on both fronts, that it is the responsibility of the head professional, director of golf, whatever title they hold.
Right.
It's easy to become complacent. It's also easy. It's easier for the assistant, who's usually younger, to become very complacent. And as the mentor, the elder statesman, etc., that it's one of their primary responsibilities to make sure, number one, the kid doesn't get complacent, and two, teach them what they're going to need at the next level. Prepare them for that.
Well, and if that kid's too complacent, then you've hired poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And no doubt about that. And we've all made some poor hires through the years, but I've been very fortunate there. We've had wonderful kids come through, and I'm sure that most of the boys I mentioned earlier would say the same thing. We're blessed to represent marvelous places, and that makes that makes it much easier to draft the kids into this, knowing full well that within short order their career should move on, assuming they do everything that they do, and we make them work with outside agencies, juniors, boys and girls clubs, local juniors, clinics and such like that. So but by the time they leave here, they're depending on how old they are, they're either ready for their own job or they're ready to move into that second position,
very well rounded,
as their assistant and in the area, the geographic area they want to live in.
What so if there's an assistant out there that wants to be the next Mike Harmon, what in today's world of PGA professionals in the industry, what do you see as some of the challenges for them?
Well, there's a lot of people applying for an opening,
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to have to stand out somehow, some way. I still contend playing is probably the most important. Your personal skills, your dress. If I have a sin, it's certainly clothing. I love good clothing and adore wearing good clothing, and so you have to look the part. I'm not too keen on beards. If your whole club's a bunch of deer hunters, I guess that works. But for the most part, I like a clean-shaven kid. There's you have to in some way make yourself stand out. I was fortunate as a former PGA Tour player. That got me in the door. And then I had the skill sets to figure it all out. I certainly had a mental aptitude to handle what was in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
With this one, this was a limited partnership. I had to have my Series 7 and Series 11 securities license in order to sell this. I had to go study oil deals and cattle futures. It was wild. That was crazy.
Some of the hats
that was crazy.
Golf pros wear a lot of hats, but not too many of them had to wear that hat.
It really pissed me off. You said you take the test on a computer, and it's just standardized testing. You can go back over it, and I'm going all over the answers on cattle and oil and all this, and you got to make 70. I'm looking at it, and just push a button. Boom, push the button, 69. God, that pissed me off. That pissed me. But I blew it. I think I made 82 next time through.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you just have to be prepared to handle. And I think still, and we touched on it earlier, you have to have the heart of a servant. You have to want to help people day in, day out. And if you don't have that, then this may not be the best business for you, because it could be, a very long, torturous process. I think that gets to the heart of it. As I said, these great professionals that I've known, they care. They care about the 20 handicapper as much as the +2.
Mm-hmm.
And they can go out with a 20 handicapper and give them just as good a time playing as they will challenge the +2 handicapper. And that's a golf professional. And
well, yeah, there's that 20%, like you talked about players. I would say there's a 20% that just have that ability. You have that ability. You fit so well, and in the environment you're in, you match extremely well. In that category.
Maybe so. I don't know. I don't know that I could speak to that. There are 25,000, 30,000 golf professionals in the U.S. and they probably, every one of them do a cracking job, every day, and deal with all the same crap that everybody else deals with. Mr. Jones lost his head cover that he got from St. Andrews on his 20 years ago, and how do you handle that? How do you tell a member that he's slow? Very hard.
Right.
You better have some skill sets. Or worse, you're cheating. Comes up. How are you going to handle that? You do it wrong, I can assure you that within 2 or 3 years, the cocktail circuit will have been poisoned to the point that you're out the door.
Right.
You better have some skill sets, and those are really personal skills. I look for a guy who laughs. I want our guys to have a good time. Now that's not always the case at a club that's a little more buttoned down, and that's okay. That doesn't make them any better or any worse. It's just knowing what you're up against. My stick's not going to work at a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big hugger. I laugh. I high five. I sit around and joke with them. I stand at tournaments and just tell them, "You suck." Okay, you're at the bottom. You suck. But I do that in a way that everyone seems to laugh a little bit, and that's kind of what I've done. It's kind of laughed a lot, and so I look for those guys. I want them around. Think I certainly know I can help them in their career and perhaps help them in a monumental way. So it's a great part of the business.
As we get closer to the end, let me read off this list here, and I think I got them all, but you correct me if I'm wrong. So CPGA, Carolina's PGA Merchandiser of the Year, 2000-2004. Carolina's PGA Horton Smith Award, 2003. National PGA Merchandiser of the Year, 2004. You had a busy year in 2004. Tour Event Merchandiser of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go on. Carolina's PGA Bill Strasbaugh Award, 2005. National Bill Strasbaugh Award, 2006. Carolina's Professional of the Year, 2007. The Carolina's PGA Hall of Fame, 2011. You played the PGA Tour. You're a wonderful husband and wonderful father. You're the director of golf at Secession. Am I missing anything?
No, it's the biggest honor still was having a bit of a fingerprint on this one, this club. I mean, those are wonderful honors, and they were wonderful evenings, and we got to share a lot of time together. Having played at the highest level and having won, tons of tournaments in the section, and enjoyed so much the honor of putting something potentially historic into play. Was what I enjoyed the most. I adore the National Merchandiser of the Year Award in 04. Still wear that ring as the first big award, and of course I was a clothes horse, and that meant a lot to me as well. But I've often said I got to do the two things I enjoy the most. I'm a golf professional, and I own a men's store, and to me that is always fun. I've been a Polo Advisory Board member for 20 plus years. Always been a Ralph Lauren guy, and I adore the clothing I get from them, and so the whole clothing side of that. I love sitting down and buying. Still like touching fabric. Still have all my pants made when I go to the Dominican Republic in the winter and play in a tournament and go into town and touch the cloth. Just go into this market and just touch the cloth. Funny story came out of that one. 2 years ago, I'm down there with my caddy Antonio, and he takes me into town, and we go to the market and pick the cloth. I usually have 6 or 7 pants made, and I drop them off at the tailor. And I always take them out to dinner and tend to go to the same spot all the time. It's just really sick, but I can't. It's hilarious. It says a lot about me. And we're at this place, and we're having a couple of beers. We're gonna have dinner, and we're sitting at the table, and he's got some buddies kind of to his right on this little upper level in this restaurant, and all of a sudden 4 or 5 gunshots ring out, and they're close. They're 50 feet away, and I look quickly to Antonio, and he's on the floor. and his buddies in a millisecond are on the floor. So the time it takes me to move my eye from him to the front door is half of a second, just a blink of an eye. And everybody in the restaurant is on the floor.
Except you.
I'm sitting there in a beautiful pair of white linens holding a El Presidente. The first thing in my head is there's no way I'm hitting the floor in these pants. Oh, what a sick individual. That is so bad.
Well,
I mean, I guess I ended up kind of squatting down. Didn't ever take the beer out of my hand. I just sat there with the kind of semi in a baseball catcher's crouch or something, with my El Presidente in the hand. No way I was hitting the floor in these beauties, not unlike what I'm wearing today. But the clothing side has always been very special to me, and we've made a real go of this shop. I love the fact that it's so small, at 450 square feet. It's
cozy.
It cranks, and with the logo and the experience everybody has, they certainly come through the door wanting something from the stay.
With the list of awards, what I want to ask you is, with all you've achieved, what gets you out of bed in the morning? In other words, what keeps you motivated? And on top of that, I guess I'll throw 3 questions at you at once. Is, well, I kind of know the answer to this. It's knowing you so long. Is, how do you stay humble? So how do you stay motivated? How do you stay humble with such a litany of awards?
Well, this is a wonderful place to come to every day because it's fresh every day. Mm-hmm. You have 75 to 100 people roll in here for 3 or 4 days, and we go way back, and they're in. We'll have a coffee, we'll have a dinner. If I can sneak out for a few holes, I'll go throw them on the shoulder and walk a few holes with them. So it's always fresh. That's a real plus. Unlike the pro at the home club who sees basically the same people every day. But I'm a man of faith. My faith means everything to me, and the word says God's tender mercies are renewed every day, and I always get up. I have a daughter who's bipolar 2, the downside of depression, and she can't get up, and it's hard. It's hard to see. My wife's been very ill for a long time. I've seen the other side of it, and I never fail to get up. I never fail to go out and enjoy a day. And I don't know that without my faith I would have gotten out of bed. But with it, I get out every day and face the challenges that hit us as a family, and that hit me once I walked through the door. Now, I'm not working in some coal mine,
right?
Or stamping out cans in some factory. This is a marvelous place to be, but my time gets consumed quickly. All these people want to stop in and say hello and ask about my family and ask how I'm doing. I had some challenges last year. I had cancer last year. I had to beat off, and then I want to know about them and their kids and their grandkids who I've become close friends with. And so everybody wants to stop in and just sit in these same chairs you're in and chat in a great environment. I love this office. And however, there's not enough 10 or 15 minutes in a day to get all that done and still handle all the sales for the memberships. I run the golf operation and run a business. My shop, which is the largest part of my income. So it's there's a lot, but I just rejoice in my faith and in the Lord and His grace, and I seem to put it all together. And one day we'll not. One day I'll walk away, and we'll walk away unequivocally. I'm not going to just hang around. If when the time comes for me to get to my family and really spend the time that's necessary to do what I need to do for them, it will be unequivocal. We've got a beautiful little place up in the mountains of North Carolina. That's where we'll go. Beach Mountain, 5,500 feet. It's gorgeous, and we love it so. And and that'll be a sad day. But I'm reconciling myself to that with each passing year, and one day that's going to come, and I can not have the 100 balls here that surface every day. But I know there's just not a more blessed man on the face of the earth. So it does make it easy to get out of bed.
What would you want, or what would you like your legacy to be?
That I served my fellow man in all capacities, not just here. Compassionate, giving, a sportsman. I'm a sportsman. And I laughed through most of my life.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Good legacy.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up with some rapid fire.
All right.
I'll ask the questions. You just first thing that comes to mind. The best part of your day is blank. Fill in the blank.
Oof. I like the mornings. Cup of coffee on the back porch with the dogs.
That's it. It's a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
Company to enjoy. Cavity back or blade?
Oh, blade.
I should have known that.
Yeah.
one.
I love center weighted. I'm still amazed that the metalheads haven't been made center weighted by someone, where you can take the toe over the ball and hook it, or you can bring the heel inside and cut it. It's perimeter weighted. It's harder to do that.
Right.
I would think you could still get it hot and still have some ability to move the ball.
Someone will do it. With today's world. If you had to pick one club in the world to join, which one would it be?
Prestwick. I've been over there so many times. I adore that. That's a problem. I guess I'll say something. Golf professionals can't join the elite clubs in the UK. They have honoraries, but they're not voting dues-paying members. That goes all the way back to 50, 75 years ahead of Old Tom. I think the R&A gave Old Tom a membership after he quit playing, which is rather strange. But on the beautiful facade of that clubhouse facing the first tee is the embossed face of Old Tom. There's no other faces up there. But I'm respectful of that. I don't. This is about the traditions. I would like to see that broken down one day. I'd like to see a club professional. We've for 200 years, 300 years in this business been the help, and not a gentleman. We're the tradesman was a term I heard once. Too much the tradesman. That hurts a little bit, frankly, because I've been engaged with helping to bring a wonderful spot online. We've given out millions in charity. We've moved young people along. I would argue that the golf professional might very well have done more for the game than the amateur. In moving the game along, but that's an old world type of thing, and that doesn't bother me. One of the most special nights of my entire life, I was invited to the Moles Society, which is the a society around London, golfing society, and they celebrated their centenary at Royal St. George's. I was given an invitation to that, and golf professionals don't get in that room. Black tie affair, really, really special evening. And the dear friends here, Mike Eyre and Bill Degenhart, had a lot to do with that, and our association with the Moles, and our association with so many, it's Secession and my personal association. I was at the head table that night with Peter Dawson, sat right next to Peter Dawson, and the following day in the foursomes match, I was 1A. on a shotgun start. Well, that was incredibly special. And as I stayed that night, when I got home from that dinner, I remember feeling like Cinderella. I got there into that room for a night. I just can't get there at 65. I'm not going to get in there now, but I hope some club professionals break that down at some point.
Let's see. Next one. Caddy or cart?
I think you know that one. You're sitting at a caddy club, for crying out loud.
One of the two.
Ought to throw this drink at you.
That's kind of like when I asked Conrad the next one. Tiger or Jack?
I think Jack's the greatest. I think the numbers bear that out. I think as I said earlier, I'm absolutely mesmerized by watching Tiger. He was something special. Jack didn't do the things Tiger did. Jack just knew how to shoot 68 every day, and on his bad day, he'd shoot 72. But Tiger dominated. But in the end, the thing that sways me the most are those second and third place finishes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
35 or 36 times.
So that says volumes to me. So I think if Tiger were to go on and beat him, obviously I think you could say he was the greatest, just on the sheer numbers. But Tiger, I don't think would ever become close to those second and third spots either.
I don't think he has the time to do it anymore.
I don't think so. And regrettably, the body breaks down. That happens in this game. And we've seen that with some of the young guns right now. I remember David Duval. He got hurt when he was number one, and never really did quite get it back. Rory's struggled a little bit with his health. He's just somewhat fragile. Jason Day's a perfect example.
Yeah, he's really
had
struggling.
A lot of problems, and when he was on, he was absolutely dominant. So, but it has to be Mr. Nicklaus, no doubt.
All right.
And my favorite right there, though,
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones. Yeah.
You've played a lot of golf courses, a lot of famous golf courses. Are there any that are on your bucket list?
Yeah, Cyprus. We'll get it done. And I would dearly love to go to the Sand Belt in Australia. I'd like to see that before I'm not able to walk it. But not many beyond that. I picked off Chicago Golf Club and Fisher's, and I played Maidstone this past summer, which I had never played, which was absolutely stunning. I couldn't believe how good that was. I wish I had seen it before Mr. Crenshaw got to it. I think Ben did it 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. I would have liked to have seen what it looked like beforehand, because it was good. I can remember every shot, every mound, every bunker, every nuance to that golf course. Played it one time. It was amazing, stunning, absolutely stunning. No, I'm sure there's probably one. I haven't played in L.A., so I would like to see that. I would love to go to Bel Air and see Mr. Marins while he's still there. He's a delightful man. I've spent a little bit of time with him and just loved every second of it. Hopefully I'll see him at Augusta in a couple of weeks. He was there last year and we had a chance to catch up. So, but thankfully, no, there's not many that I haven't seen.
Didn't think so. Last rapid fire. If you could have one mulligan, whether it's a golf tournament, a fun round, or life, or do you even need one?
I guess the one thing that stands out to me that I missed on was National Club Pro of the Year. I know from people that were in the room that it was a coin toss. I would have liked to have had that one, I think. As far as taking shots back, no. I wouldn't change a thing. I think it was I didn't have it presented to me on a platter. I had to work my butt off. Had the help of so many friends and family that got me through it. I worked hard. Understand the value of work and the confidence that came with it. Good education. I've seen everything, but most importantly, I got to help put something into play that, as we said earlier, could be historic. Remains to be seen, based on the leadership of this club in the years to come. But I did my job, and I think that's all any man or woman could ever ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do your job and do your best. I've tried to be kind and charitable. I enjoy talking to the landscaper coming into work as much as I enjoy talking to the CEO of IBM. No real respecter of persons in that regard. I think we're here to enjoy one another and have a good time, as I have had in my life, and not dwell on the darker times. We've had them as a family. We've had them, but through our faith. We've pulled through all of that, and sit here with 100 years from now, maybe somebody will say, yeah, the old pro had something to do with this.
I'm fairly certain they're going to say that. If someone wanted to get a hold of you or join the club or want more information, where's the best place they can do that?
Well, they can contact me.
Social media.
Membership is by invitation. From within the membership, so that doesn't really wash. But yeah, they can reach me. I don't do social media. I don't do any.
Smart man.
I don't have the time. I don't have the time to handle what I've got. I can't even fathom having Twitter accounts and Facebooks, and my God, I can't. I mean, I can't keep up with what I've got, and so no. But you're welcome to call anytime. Just call the club. Yeah, I'll be glad to talk with anybody. One of the great stories, Eric Kennedy, who's now the pro at Overbrook, once told a guy that called the pro shop. He said, "Hey, is the pro in?" And he said, no, he's on the line. And the member said, how long do you think he'll be? And Kennedy said, well, even if it's a wrong number, it's going to be 5 minutes.
I knew that was coming.
And you knew Kennedy, a sick individual.
Yeah.
But I've always taken my time. I think that's the thing that maybe characterized my career. I always took the time. To spend with people, and I'll bypass the somebody wanting to send me a check for membership in lieu of spending time with members and guests as much as members, really, family, friends, anybody in need. So no, if somebody needs to talk, they can call.
All right, this has been great. You've always been so generous with me and so many others with your time. I can't thank you enough, and I greatly appreciate this.
Well, thank you,
Mike.
Peter. It's an honor.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beautiful.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up again on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say.